There, just give me the mic. Let me just make sure.
Not for long.
Hello. Hello. Fine, it's 10 seconds. It's fine. Whatever.
I have this
Seems to be working.
But I was really
10
happy
seconds
to
away.
make this more. You
That's
never
all right.
responded.
Well, I've been up at Frankie's place in Kelman Park.
Oh, well, so you're hopefully well there fencing.
Yeah. Thanks. But now I'm getting cold.
Oh, no.
I know. It's just,
One thing or another.
30-some pages of the bike.
Are you back to work?
I just pulled out the 2 pages of
Good evening. Welcome to ANC 3F, our September 17th, 2013 meeting at the Methodist Home in ANC 3F. I don't know. What is this, North Cleveland Park?
no, we're in Forest Hills.
Forest Hill.
Hills.
Is this Forest Hills?
3F05.
Forest Hills.
More than a sensitive point there.
I'm Adam Tope, Chairman of ANC 3F. Quick introduction starting from my left with David. Please pull your mic close to you and speak into it.
David Slorson Lowell, ANC from 3F06, also the Secretary.
Mary Beth Ray, 3F3.
Bob Summerskill, 3F07, and Treasurer.
Sally Gresham, 3F04.
Manoli Praniotakis, 3F05.
All right, looks like we have a quorum other than Karen Perry. Everyone else is here. So the agenda, I've circulated the agenda. Does anyone have additions or deletions to the agenda? Mary Beth?
If it's, I had mentioned this at past meetings, and I don't know if anybody has a problem with it, hopefully not, but I'd like to propose the membership for the Vision Committee. And if you all don't mind, if I just present the slate at the end of the meeting or whenever it's convenient, we can vote on the membership. These are the people who have participated in every meeting since April.
Okay, that's fine. We'll do that at the end. Does anyone else have additions or deletions? All right, seeing none, can I have a vote to approve the agenda as modified by Mary Beth? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Passes unanimously. So first up, we'll start with commissioner announcements. David, if you have any, feel free.
No announcements.
I have 6 announcements. So first of all, I know many of you are interested in the Soapstone Valley sewer rehabilitation effort. And I want to let you know that thanks to the efforts of David Bardeen and Marjorie Scher and a few other people, DC Water sent us a draft timeline, which we will make available to you shortly. We want to just discuss it with DC Water and see if there are any other changes that they wish to make or that we want to suggest. But anyway, we're making progress on that count. David Bardeen and I had planned to meet with DC Water today to pick up the videotapes and report pursuant to the FOIA request that Bob Summerskill submitted. But due to the Navy Yard shooting yesterday, that meeting is rescheduled for Monday. The second announcement is that I participated as a speaker at the DC Green Living Expo on September 7th, and I'd just like to commend UDC for a successful and thoughtful event. I know Adam Tope and Sally Gresham and some others were there, and it was really,
I was there.
and Bob Summerskill were there, and it was a really terrific day. They did a great job. The third announcement is that Sandy Farber at UDC and her husband, the Farber Bandier family, are donating 3,000 bulbs to Van Ness Forest Hills. And so we're going to have a special planting day on November 16th from 9 to 1. That's a Saturday. And we will need volunteers, and families are welcome. So we're planning to plant about 3,000 daffodils along our stretch of Connecticut Avenue from about Vesey to Albemarle. We'll meet at the Spears next to Epicurean and look for more information on our website. The fourth announcement is that the Vision Committee has drafted a vision statement, which we will post on our website. The fifth announcement is that our next Vision Committee meeting is Friday, October 11th from 11 to 1 at UDC Building 38, room C01K, our usual room at UDC. My sixth announcement is that the Forest Hills Citizens Association is meeting Thursday evening, September 19th at 7 p.m. at the home of the Elephants, 4515 30th Street. There's a suggested donation of $20, and we're grateful to the Elephants for hosting that. And finally, I'd just like to offer a word of praise for the DC first responders after yesterday's horrible shooting incident at the Navy Yard. And I'm new to the ANC, and so I don't even know if this is appropriate, but I just think that as a citizen of the district, I'm grateful for all that our first responders did yesterday. And of course, it was a tragedy, and our hearts and prayers go out to the families affected. But it was a proud day, I think, for DC first responders. That's all.
Thank you. Bob?
No announcements.
Karen, do you have any announcements? Sally?
Yes. I have two announcements. I just want to bring everybody up to date. WAMU is completely moved in. We welcome them to the neighborhood. They will, I think they are broadcasting, but Diane Reams and one of her co-arts is moving over, I think, in a week or so. So I don't think they're there yet. While we are glad they are here, some constituents, as well as myself, were a little dismayed by the public space with the amount of concrete and less green. And I have been assured by AU's Director of Communications and Community that they will beef up the planters and have more green in the space, and hopefully work on the mini park. So please welcome them to the neighborhood. If you go in and see their space, it's very nice. The second announcement is the Forest Hills Playground had their conceptual design presentation last Thursday night. It was fairly well attended. It was a nice presentation. I have a colored document if anybody's interested in looking at it. Basically, everybody's very happy and excited about the playground, especially the play structures. Two very nice new play structures, lots of safety surface, saving trees. They're maintaining the tennis courts that have just been redone. They're adding a half basketball court down at the Brandywine entrance. We have requested that they put adult fitness equipment down at that area, which everybody really wants. Right now they have kind of a combination of children's play structure and benches, but we asked during this meeting to make that more of an adult area. They have a community circle that's more like a small amphitheater that people can sit in off in the hill area towards the baseball field. The main thing that people asked for at this particular meeting was more lighting down the main pathway between Chesapeake and Brandywine, pervious paving, if at all possible, if it meets the budget or by some other means, and the adult fitness. One gentleman asked for the structure, the gazebo, to come back, whereas the rest of the people were like, no, we have trees and we don't like that, but we're going to work with the design team a little further. They're going to take all these comments back, and they're going to do a design build document and go out for, well, they're going to go out for bid, and then they're going to hire a design build firm. I have requested that we have an interim presentation to see what the design build team comes up with, because we don't have any construction documents right now. The time frame is that we have kind of missed the fall construction, so construction will start next spring. More updates if we get another meeting. I'll let you know.
Thanks.
Okay.
Manola?
Two quick ones. There are some postcards out in front that provide some information about the ANC 3F's grants program. And please take one and pass one to anybody you know who's involved in a 501c3 that serves this community. I guess this is our September call for our soft October grants deadline, so we look forward to seeing grants proposals. Also, there's another page out front for information about an organization called DC Sun that helps homeowners work together to aggregate their demand for solar equipment to bring down the cost of installation and so forth. We had a meeting here this last Tuesday, a week ago today, primarily focused on there's a number of residents of 3F05, but they're looking for between 30 and 40 households in this area to build that critical mass to bring down costs. So there's more information on the sheet and links to the website and so forth. That's it. I could come up with another one, I suppose.
All right. Thank you.
I'm done.
Okay. Good. So next
Oh,
up.
actually, so I do have one. Sorry, one more.
Go
yes,
for it.
that's fair. On October 9th, it's National Walk to School Day, and the Merch School is celebrating National Walk to School Day with a number of events promoting pedestrian safety. So if you see large groups of children walking the streets in the morning of October 9th,
Don't say it that way.
don't run for your safety. They're walking for their own safety.
Thank you.
So we should aim for them.
Okay? No, don't do that.
All right. So next up on our agenda is the announcements open forum. If members of the community have an issue to raise or concern or anything else about ANC 3F that is not already on our agenda for this evening, you can come up to our microphone there and speak. David.
David Bardeen, I've got 4 quick items. Because of the Van Ness Vision Committee's interest in what UDC has in mind in landscaping for their student center, I made an appointment, and Commissioner Gresham and I went over there last week. Commissioner Tope and Commissioner Ray were not available. They showed us their detailed plans, which we hadn't seen before. And I asked for a set that we have in time for tonight's meeting, and Commissioner Gresham's kind enough, or her husband's kind enough one way, to make copies. I don't know if you really want to take a look and see whether all of these sheets are really landscaping. I think they may have given me more than that, but for the other commissioners. So I'm delivering that.
Thank you. Great. Thank you, David.
That's great.
Welcome, Commissioner Gresham. And in that connection, I was deeply impressed and ignorant and uninformed about what they have in mind and what their landscape architect, Lee and Associates, have come up with in both the public space and the private space. In Connecticut, for example, 35 feet of public space and 25 feet of private. So I'd ask Mr. Chairman and members of the ANC that you invite the Vice President in charge of facilities, Vice President Jumper, and her team to come and just brief you the way you do, how other people have done, on what their project will be like in landscaping, because I think it will change our neighborhood, and I hope you can do that at your next meeting. The third item has to do with the playground. I have raised some questions at the public meeting and in subsequent discussions with the Department of Parks and Recreation, and with the Department of General Services, and with the Department of the Environment, as to whether it might be possible somehow in this to do 2 different things. One is most important in terms of Soapstone Valley, to expand the rain garden activity that they're proposing, which now is just on the park side of the property line, to include the street side of the property line, because that's an issue for the erosion down in, and so the Stacy West, who's managing for the Park Service, is going on a 10-day vacation. Today is the last day for formal comments. I'll try to put something in by email to them and to DDOE and to everybody else, with copies to the commissioner, of course, but tonight by email. But basically, I'm asking, take a hard look, see is there any possibility of finding some additional source of funding, a way of combining, and also on those impervious asphalt that the Commissioner Gresham mentioned. I just don't quite see why take a decrepit impervious asphalt walkway, which we now have between Chesapeake and Brandywine, and substitute for it two brand new impervious asphalt. If we can't do it right this time, maybe we should put it off. And finally, just one thing I'd like you to think about as 7 commissioners, as to how you're going to handle it in the future. We had an experience in my condo where one of the big street trees had to come down. It was a big oak, one of those giant trees. And the city is going to plant, DDOT's going to plant a replacement, which is wonderful. By good luck, because of a walkthrough that Commissioner Ray and Commissioner Gresham arranged, and I walked through with them, the ward arborist was there, and I asked him what species he's going to put in. He didn't know. We checked, and we found out he was going to put in a small, short, flowering tree, which is frankly not what my condo neighbors would like, and not what my building manager would like. And fortunate with the support of the 2 commissioners, I think we convinced them to take another look. But the issue, I think, for you as 7 commissioners is to what extent is the ANC going to develop a policy for this whole stretch of Connecticut? You know, as you heard from UFA, these trees are old. They are going to die. They're going to need to be replaced. Is this going to be try to have a pattern which is in keeping for the whole neighborhood? Is it going to be each single-member district? Is it going to be each condo or another building? I'm not suggesting you discuss it tonight. I don't know when you should discuss it, but at some point you could ask the Vision Committee to come up with a recommendation. You could do it otherwise. I think that could be an issue of growing importance to people who live on Connecticut Avenue, and the value of enjoyment of Connecticut Avenue turns in part on having large, spacious street trees. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Does anyone else wish to speak? It's former Commissioner Kathy Wiss. You have to actually speak into the microphone.
I know, and I'm not 6 feet tall. Good evening. I'm here about a matter that came up in an email that Adam sent to me and many others this week about how DDOT is redoing its wheelchair ramps between Porter and Rodman Street. And I thought, that's great, except once you get to on 34th Street, once you get to Rodman Street, you absolutely cannot get through on a sidewalk because there is none. And I wrote back saying, you know, we really need to request a sidewalk on the east side of Reno Road between Rodman and Tilden. And I mentioned to Adam that I had seen a woman jogging in the travel lane of Reno Road. As you know, there is no parking lane on Reno Road. It is an arterial. And she was, if there had been any oncoming traffic, she would have been toast. I said, well, the vegetation is a tangle and is 5 feet high. Well, actually, I went out today to take photographs, and it's not. It's grown up. They are full-size trees. They go all the way to the curb, and unfortunately, 2 of my pictures I sent from my cell phone to my printer have not come through. But here is one picture. This is a real hazard. If you were in a wheelchair and you got up to Rodman Street, you'd have to somehow try to wheel across busy Reno Road or go back down to Porter Street or whatever. It's just a situation that I really ask you to please try to do something about.
No problem. So I emailed all the people after you, and I'll follow up again with them.
Okay. I appreciate it.
I've been sort of working on it for a bit, and there's some kind of issue. I don't know, ownership of the property or something. I don't know.
Well, the adjacent property owner is the National Park Service.
Yeah, so they have
but
to.
DDOT does own the sidewalk area. We had the somewhat similar problem
Okay.
on Nebraska Avenue
Okay.
when there were no addressees adjacent because it was all backyards.
Okay.
And eventually, and we passed a resolution in 2008. It was basically handicapped access. And in fact, I saw a woman in a walker in the travel lane of Nebraska Avenue
Okay.
because she couldn't get through the vegetation. And it took them 2 years, but they did get that sidewalk put in, and people are very happy to have it.
Okay.
Is that on the priority sidewalk from Marlene?
Yeah, I mean,
I
They- the
tried
sidewalk
placing it
gaps?
second to the
it's
one.
a gap.
It's
I
a
know
gap.
but
It's
she
definitely a
was gonna
gap.
label priorities.
I
They're
think it-
working on that now, so
Right.
you might want to get in contact with Marlene Berlin. I mean,
Oh, I have been.
Okay.
I copied her on the email. In fact, I
Okay.
was working on that sidewalk gap project too. And, because I do think it's a very high priority. There is no way you can get through without taking your life in your hands. Thank you.
Okay, no problem. Thank you.
I have joined with some of the neighbors on Rodman to remove invasive species from that area. And, it's definitely a hazard.
Great. Does anyone else in our audience wish to speak about any issues?
I'd like to address something that David said.
Okay. Move your microphone, please.
David, I'd like to address something that you raised, and that's the Van Ness Vision Committee and street trees. I think we need to go a step further. About 3 years ago, and former Commissioner Wiss will remember that, we had the meetings with Anna Chamberlain on this Rock Creek West 2, whatever that proposal was. And basically what they did was put together a small area plan, or a plan basically, for the Van Ness neighborhood all the way through to Chevy Chase and parts of Tenleytown and 3E. I think it's time that maybe the Van Ness Vision Committee or another group, smaller group, go back and meet with OP and DDOT and start the process over to come up with a Van Ness small area plan, and not rely on a 3 or 4 year old study that DDOT adopted without our ANC approving it, and basically very few people ever attended the meetings.
Karen, sorry, what is a small area plan? Is that like a regulatory term?
Yeah. The district did, DDOT and Office of Planning put together what they called small area plans for various neighborhoods. Only they incorporated Van Ness into Chevy Chase and whatever.
Okay.
And there were meetings about, what was it, Kathy, about 3 or 4 years ago? Up at when they did the Rock Creek West study?
is this a livability?
It's the livability study.
It's the
Oh, okay.
livability.
It's the
We
Rock
have a
Creek-
copy.
That
Yeah,
came out
we have
of
copies.
Andrea Lamaro.
Yes.
and-
Yeah,
okay,
but I'm
yeah,
just saying,
okay.
it was very poorly attended by residents from our neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
They put together a plan that DDOT adopted that we have to now live with. And I think it's time to revisit it and come up with a small area plan for our own neighborhood.
Well, I completely agree, and I appreciate your saying that. And I think that's really the mission of the Vision Committee, to come up with a plan that we present to the ANC in September of 2014. I mean, that's our charter.
I agree, but I think it's also imperative that we meet with OP and DDOT even before that.
Yeah, that would be
Because
great.
they're already approving things from this Rock Creek West 2 livability study, and we never approved it.
Right, right.
Okay.
I think it'd be nice if we come in Forest Hills and not Van Ness.
Well, that's a different issue. It can be a Forest Hills, Vision, I don't care. It's Forest Hills, Van Ness, Vision, whatever. But I think we need to really start with OP and DDOT again.
And how do we want to do that? Do you want to do that through the
I think it'd be
Trees
gr-
Committee?
I don't think the Trees Committee, I think it should be through the Van Ness Forest Hills Vision Committee. A few of us go down and meet with them.
Right, but there's a tree division, a
But
subcommittee.
but this is more than trees. This is a whole small area plan. It would encompass trees.
Okay, so you want more than trees.
Oh, yeah, it encompasses public space, trees, design. It's an
Right.
all-encompassing
It's-
plan.
Traffic,
Okay.
cycling.
So we'll work through the Vision Committee, and
I think just a few
Figure
of
it
us
out.
need to go down and, and meet with them
that's fine.
and get the ball rolling.
Okay. All right, so next up on our agenda is Andrew Oatman here yet? No? Okay, so we'll skip that right now. So there's a presentation by DC Sustainable Energy Utility. Is someone here
Yep.
from that?
Yes,
All right.
I invited Hasim Dawkins, the manager for community relations for DC Sustainable Energy Utility, just to talk a little bit more about what DCSEU does. They've been very good to work with us in 3F05, where we've been working with a handful of buildings on some of their energy consumption.
Great, thank you. Welcome.
Thank you. Well, first, I just wanted to, thank you again, Alice, for inviting me out here to actually speak about this very important topic of both energy efficiency and how it can improve the quality of your lives. As I'm sure a lot of you already know, as I listened to Commissioner Ray actually speak about some of the initiatives that were upcoming and that 3F was involved in. So just to tell you a little bit about the DCSEU. The DCSEU is responsible for making sure that businesses and residents are going green by reducing the cost of making energy efficiency upgrades. And as you're making these energy efficiency upgrades, we also are doing a stringent evaluation of how we can also include green jobs. So just to talk a little bit about our program. So our program allows both homeowners and businesses to reduce the cost of making energy efficiency upgrades, as I said. But in addition to reducing those costs, we also help reduce green jobs. In 2008, the DC Council decided to get really serious about reducing energy costs. So what we were able to do as a council was, I'm sorry, not we, but what the DC Council was able to do was unanimously pass the Clean Affordable Energy Act. What this innovative and historic act was able to do was establish a DCSEU to, number one, reduce the energy consumption for the District of Columbia, prepare DC residents for occupations and green jobs, as well as help underserved neighborhoods reduce their energy bill through energy efficiency. The DCSEU is actually supported by the businesses and the residents through a surcharge on your electricity and your utility bill. What our programs actually do is provide you with rebates and incentives. So when you actually go to your local hardware store like Rodman's, or you go to Safeway, you go to Giant, you're actually able to purchase you're actually able to buy discounted complex fluorescent lights or energy efficient lights at a very discount price. You can get them for about 50 cents per bulb because of the establishment of this Clean Affordable Energy Act. In addition to lighting, we also offer rebates or incentives for anybody who decides to make energy efficient upgrades to their home. So through our DC Home Performance program, we're able to offer an incentive of $500 if you would like to make a energy efficiency upgrade that results, number one, in the reduction of your air leakage by 10%. So to get this DC Home Performance program, what you actually have to do is complete a home energy audit of your home. And the home energy audit will actually do a extensive evaluation of your home. It will take a look at your air leakage, but also take a look at the effectiveness of your insulation, your heating system or your HVAC system, as well as your windows and your appliances. After you conduct the energy audit, you have the opportunity to work with your contractor to figure out what makes the most sense for you. And once you figure that out, you actually buy into the program. And if you spend up to or at least $1,500, we're able to give you $500 back. And just to talk a little bit about the impact that DCSEU has made. So the DCSEU in 2012 was able to service about 18,795 households. Of these households, about 60% were in underserved neighborhoods, and we spent roughly about $5.2 million with certified business enterprises. So the DCSEU, we have approximately about 30 staff. All of our staff are DC residents, and the certified business enterprises are the businesses that are certified to be locally based businesses. We worked with about 60 of those businesses. All of our retailers who we work with to actually distribute our energy efficient products are all locally based businesses. So we actually work with about 50 locally based businesses like Rodman's and Annie's Ace, so forth and so on. We also had a significant amount of impact in the renewables or the solar installations. So we installed roughly 87 solar PVs or photovoltaic solar arrays on households in Ward 7-8, which really resulted in a lot of job creation. So we were roughly able to employ about 147 individuals, or prepare 147 individuals for full-time employment in the green industry in 2012. So in a nutshell, I mean, the DCSU is not only providing you with a way to decrease the cost of making energy-efficient upgrades, which basically is an investment, because as soon as you install these energy-efficient upgrades, they take less energy to actually run. So that is what actually reduces your energy bill. Or at the same time, allowing for more job creation to take place by making sure that we're working with individuals who want to employ DC residents. So if you want to keep in touch with us, I'm going to actually pass around a newsletter so that you guys can just find out a little bit more about what we're doing and find out, you know, what events are taking place in your neighborhood. You can also look us up at dcsu.com. And if there's any questions at all.
Sure. Do any commissioners have questions?
I do.
Karen?
You've mentioned plans and things that you're doing with homeowners. What about with the apartment, condo, and co-op buildings? What are you doing there? Because many of us, especially in our ANC, we represent a lot of high-rise apartments.
So with the apartment buildings and co-ops, we actually work through a different program. It's our comprehensive services. So how we work with them is usually on the front end. So when a property owner is looking to make any type of upgrades to the entire building, we're able to come in and actually work with them hand in hand to figure out, number one, you know, what needs to happen in order to properly plan out how you want to make your energy efficient upgrades. Once we do a benchmark analysis, which is similar to energy audit, but it's for, you know, a multifamily building, we'll actually figure out where it would make the most sense for you to invest, and then we'll put together a custom package or custom incentive to actually move forward. In addition, we also have teaming partners in the DCSU. So we work with IMT, who actually works with our benchmarking. So basically, that is about code regulation and energy efficient standards. So through mechanisms like those, we are able to influence both at the front end as we're putting together policies, which would, you know, could probably, not probably, but are most likely to help, you know, multifamily buildings be able to reduce their energy costs, which they can then pass on to their tenants, and also, you know, a little bit further downstream with just direct incentives. In addition to that, one of the things that we're trying to do with the benchmarking is a green lease. So we know that split incentive is a big barrier. So split incentive, if you don't know, is that basically a lot of times the tenant doesn't see the direct impact of them putting in the CFL because they don't, you know, sometimes the rent is all inclusive. So what we're trying to do is develop this green lease model where, you know, as soon as you are able to reduce your energy consumption within your unit, it can then pass through to you.
Great. Mary Beth?
Mr. Dawkins, thank you. This is really informative. How long does it take, like, how do you register for an audit, and how long does it take to get off the list and to actually have somebody come to your house?
So it doesn't take that long. So once you decide to move forward with the energy audit, it should probably take you, I would say, about 5 business days for them to actually come in, conduct the audit. Once the audit is complete, you should get your home energy audit, which is the actual document, I would say probably within the next, you know, 5 to 10 business days. So
we just go to dcsu.com to sign up for an audit.
Exactly.
Okay.
And I also brought some materials with me. So if you actually got the handout, you see 10 ways to save energy. So as I said, one of the big things we do is just educate. So when you look at that list, you can look at some easy ways that you can begin to save, and it also has some key benefits. So number one, you know, reducing your carbon footprint so that, you know, our children and grandchildren can have a sustainable environment to live in. And then number two, it also tells you just how much approximately you can save on your energy. And then you also have a small handout. It says Enlighten DC. On that small sheet, you actually will see on the back the retailers which you can go and just purchase your energy efficient measures at that discount price. As I said, you pay into supporting the DCSU and the incentives we provide directly. So it's already discounted. You don't need any special coupon or anything like that.
Great. Do any other commissioners have a question?
No, I just want to say thanks for coming tonight, Hasim, and for your help with the We're at the beginning of the process, the cooperation between the buildings and my S&D, but we do appreciate the support so far, both from Chris Van Arsdale, who I know has since departed, but also now with your other colleagues who are working with us. So, thank you.
Great.
Could you give us some of the handouts? I'm not sure.
Yes.
Okay, that'd be great. Thank you.
Cool. Does anyone in the audience have a question at all? Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, so next up, is the person from Rivers Smart here yet? No. Okay, we'll just move to BF Saul. If you all would like to come up.
I just want to say, Commissioners, you hopefully brought your packet with you. This is what Sarah is going to show tonight. So,
Thank you.
that's the zone with
These old ones.
Okay, so Sally, do you want to introduce, or who wants to chat about what we're chatting about? I don't know.
well, I'll introduce them.
Okay.
They're Park Van Ness is in my S&D. Brian Downey was Saul, and Don, where'd Don go? Don Hackney's here from Saul, and then Sarah Alexander from Torrey Gallus. We went to, or they went to, and Karen and myself and David Bardeen went to a public space committee hearing on July 25th. And at that hearing, they got quite a few things approved, but the main thing that they did not get approved was their curb cut. So over the last couple of months, they have been preparing to go back to the Public Space Committee and refile a new design for mainly the entrance courtway, not the curb cut. The curb cut is basically where it was from the original drawing. So Sarah and Brian are going to bring us up to date on that, and then we will talk about a resolution.
I will thank you, Brian Downey with Saul, and first I'll step back
Can
a
you
moment.
keep talking to the thing?
I'll step back a moment to set some of the backdrop here. We were in April with our presentation of the concept for our proposal, our redevelopment of Van Ness. We returned in early July, or the July ANC meeting, to talk about the streetscape. And by the streetscape, we mean basically, in this case, everything along Connecticut Avenue between the curb and our building. And our building is essentially along the property line. We were here to talk in more detail about the streetscapes because we needed to go to the Public Space Committee later that month, because the Public Space Committee is a committee downtown as part of the DC government that is responsible for hearing and reviewing the design, basically the design and proposed public space improvements or streetscape improvements when those streetscape improvements get to a certain level of detail and complexity. Suffice to say, our project needed to go before public space. That's not unusual. Many, many projects do. The agenda was long. It was quite long that night. And the committee heard our entire presentation for a streetscape and issued an order or a ruling, and it was essentially approved with conditions. Condition 8 reads, the curb cut approval was suspended and that's what we're talking about here tonight, until additional materials have been reviewed by Traffic Operations Administration and Infrastructure Project Management Administration, basically two review agencies within the Department of Transportation. Once this has been completed, applicant will return to the Public Space Committee at a later date for reconsideration. So what we've done in the past 45 days is work with staff at DDOT in order to try to come up with some sort of configuration that would be acceptable to DDOT staff and therefore to allow us to go forward and present it to the Public Space Committee. That is the one loose end that was left as of July. So we're back here tonight to talk about that. Now, we do have, Sarah did load the previous presentation. It shows the buildings and shows the sidewalk and shows the whole project. And I don't want to skip that, but I don't know that we want to go into that unless somebody wants us to.
No.
I don't think so.
I
No.
think in the interest of time, we'll just.
So having
skip
said
it.
that, I'll turn it over to Sarah, and she will, she's going to show you what we have. This is a booklet that we have submitted to DDOT, that's District Department of Transportation, which is affiliated with the Public Space Committee. And this shows the revised curb cut and entrance court, curb cut and revised entrance courtyard configuration.
Good evening. For those of you who have seen this project before, the image on the screen should actually look pretty identical to what you've seen previously. None of the building elements that are, building surface elements have changed at all. So we're really only talking about the area, the ground plane here, directly between the entry court. And for those of you, just a refresher, our entry court is a curb cut which is on axis with Yuma Street. So we're at the same intersection as the Yuma Street intersection. And we were proposing previously to have a 20-foot curb cut on axis with intersection in this location. And our previous configuration, which we presented, was a little bit more convoluted in the way the cars actually operated within the entry court. So we worked with DDOT to resolve that movement, which I'll go through. But in terms of the experience of the pedestrian, the experience of the public, the experience of the building, really a lot of what we'll be talking about will not even be experienced. So it's really how the circle operates. So this was the package that we presented, or rather we sent to DDOT for their approval. Just a refresher for anyone who hasn't seen the project, it is located on Connecticut Avenue, just at the intersection of Yuma, and it backs up onto the park. We started off by just showing where our building was in context, with the Park Connecticut to the south and Yuma Street here, again, with our project here, using that intersection for the access of our drop-off and pickups for the residential use. Looking in, this is a little clearer diagram. You can see here we proposed previously this was a square. And for those of you who saw it last time, you pulled in, you parked pretty much nose in facing north on this portion of the square, and then you backed up and you pulled out. It was that backing up movement that really concerned DDOT. They were afraid that some cars might be pulling in while the other cars were backing up. And even though that we really do anticipate a low volume, consistent but low volume of traffic in the circle, they were concerned that that movement might just be too complex and would cause backing up into the intersection. So instead, we looked at revising our plan moderately so that instead of having our gateway right here at the edge of this piece here, we pushed it back 11 feet to allow for the entry courtyard to complete a full circle so that all cars, including 19-foot-long Suburbans, can come in and make a full 360-degree turn. And you'll see some of these cars in the movement in a second, and then pull back out. So again, the only area that was affected was really right here. We kept the landscape buffer on either side with the lead walks that maintain the entry to our residential. For those of you who haven't seen the project, our main residential entry is right here off the entry court, and we have a secondary entry to the south here. These are really just some area diagrams showing the previous area that we had in public space versus our revised area, which is actually smaller. And then we had a signage diagram showing where we would clearly identify that this area was for residential drop-off and pickup only. And then lastly, here's our turning diagrams. So here is the 19-foot-long, very large SUV. clear, easily making the turn. And then this is a Camry, so if you have a small car, you can easily turn in the circle. And then we just did a diagram for queuing. So if we have 1, 2, 3, 4 cars, they can easily all stack within the circle without any problems. And we will have traffic a management porter at the door. So if this car is standing too long, he will ask him to get to the back of the line, and the whole circle will move forward. So that was really what we presented, and we did receive their preliminary approval. It still needs to go to the public hearing, but we did receive the approval for this new configuration. And if there's any questions, I'd be happy to take them.
Okay, so commissioners, do you have any questions?
I do.
Karen, can you
A couple of,
speak in your mic?
How are cars going to know to pull in and do this circumference and not just drive in straight? Are you going to put some, like a little fountain or something in the middle?
I think that's a great question. We are, it's very subtle here, you can see, but we are showing a circular paving pattern, and I think some sort of emblem in the center of the pavement will help delineate that movement. Partially, it's, I would hope, a little bit of common sense. When you come here and you see a circle, you'll think to turn around.
I would hope so, but you can't rely on common sense, as we all know.
And there will be the porter there to help direct any misguided cars.
Well, you know, I have to be honest. You know, I live in a building. We also have doormen and porters. If they're helping a resident or whatever, they can't just drop everything if they're taking luggage up to a resident or helping with groceries to run out. So I don't rely on that. I think there needs to be something in the middle here so that people know that they have to drive around.
I think we can study that.
You know, something, and it can be a, you know, a tree, it can be anything. I mean, a big planter box with trees. I didn't mean, you know.
Okay.
But
well,
I think
we can definitely study what kind of paving pattern or what kind of emblem or what kind of motif
we need something, in other words, just to make sure that cars do drive around.
Mm-hmm.
I noticed also that you still have a drop-off area within the public space, according to these
a drop-off area.
This says drop-off area within public space proposed.
Oh, that's the portion. That's the drawing. This drawing here.
Yeah.
So yes, the two small triangles that are in yellow here, those areas are technically over the property line, so they are in public space. So we were asking for that area to be allowed, and they said that was acceptable.
Okay.
Could you tell the audience and the commissioners what the materials are?
Oh, sure. Yes, let me go through that. They're actually very consistent with what we had shown previously. It's a granite paving around the entry court, and then it's a cobblestone, 4x4 granite cobblestone in a circular pattern, which was similar, previously a square pattern, now it's a circular pattern. And then the entry court drive, this was in reaction to DDOT's comments, is actually going to be concrete stamped with the exact same color and pattern as the London Walk pavers that are on the adjacent sidewalk. So it will be a different material, but look and feel similar to the London pavers.
And what is the planning?
And the planting, we're still working on that. Matt is actually here from Michael Ferguson's office. We've discussed having a combination of ground cover and seasonal plantings. The specific varieties haven't been selected yet.
So you're going to keep it low?
Correct.
Is what the...
Correct. We don't want to impede vision.
Okay. Do any other commissioners have a question?
One of the things they talked about at the last Public Space Commission meeting was the vaults. And I know that you're going to put plantings now around the vaults rather than move the vaults or whatever. What kind of plantings are we going to use there?
We're still showing the hedges. So
Okay.
it would be a 3-foot tall
It's just going to be a hedge.
Mm-hmm. And the exact configuration of that we're still working on.
You're still working on that, okay. I want to say something. The Public Space Committee that Brian referred to that day, we were supposed to go on about 2 o'clock, if I remember correctly.
You're correct.
I think we got on at 8 or 9 o'clock at night, and we closed the place. Even the cleaning crew had left the building.
They were doing yoga and calisthenics in the next room.
Does anyone in the audience have a question about this at all? Kathy, can you come up to the microphone, if you don't mind?
When I was looking at these drawings, I had the same question Karen did. How are you going to organize the people to make them know they're supposed to go around the circle, not make some strange movement? But then it occurs to me, when I have visited Karen's building, sometimes there'll be a car stopped, and you're behind, and you want to pass them. You want to get around them. So my question is, if you were to put a little something in the middle to help people realize they're supposed to go around, how much room is there for those that want to pass without getting their bumper scraped or scraping the other car?
Right, I think that would be part of the design factor. I think you have to balance the desire to make it extremely clear with something in the middle versus what you just said. So it might be something in the middle that you can drive over, but it still is, you know, like a beautiful bronze plate or something with the Van Ness, Park Van Ness. I'm sure you guys would like that.
Kathy,
Just purely a suggestion.
I
but-
think also, Kathy, I think also, you don't have these drawings, but the difference in my building is you're allowed to leave your car and you're allowed to have deliveries, etc. Here, it's resident drop-off, pickup only, no deliveries, no unattended vehicles, and towing strictly enforced. A little bit different than what you see at my building.
Yes, thank you. However, you know,
I know it's human
you
nature.
never know. It's human nature. Oh, I'll just run in for a minute, and it won't inconvenience anybody at all. So
I know,
that was the
I
reason I
know.
raised that.
Great. Does anyone else in the audience have a question? If you don't mind coming up to our microphone.
I'm noticing, and these cars are drawn to scale to the circumference of the
Correct.
entryway.
They're actually various different sizes, representing different size cars.
So the cut, the portal into the circle, is that wide enough for two vehicles to be there at one time?
Yes.
Can someone go in and someone go out at the same time?
I can answer that.
Yeah. It's pretty close.
It's a 20-foot curb cut, which is the same size as the standard DC alley. And the 20-foot curb cut is the size that's the standard size that DDOT wants for curb cuts. So we've shown two cars, a car can go in, a car can go out in that space.
Great. Are there any?
Can I just, yeah.
Mary Beth?
I spent a lot of time down by the Swedish embassy picking up my son at crew practice, and there's an almost identical situation, and they just have different tones of pavers. So that might be a thought, and you might go have a look at that. It's the driveway, right? Yeah, it's almost identical to this. And it's never a problem, other than annoying crew parents like me waiting to pick up their children.
Great.
I mean, you can do the light color and then a darker
Right.
color, maybe in a
Just a contrasting color.
a contrasting
Yeah.
line or arrows or.
I am sure Michael's office can figure something out.
Michael's office will work on that, right?
Great.
I
So,
think it looks really nice. I would like to say from the original square design, which was also very nice in plan, this is a much better solution, and I think PPSA making you go back to the drawing board actually did a favor on this. So kudos to DDOT and kudos to you all on that one. I would like maybe Brian to address the other conditions that the Public Space Committee came up with. Some things were approved. Some things were asked to work with DDOT agencies, and some things were requests for compliance. So if you could.
I will first talk a little bit about the process. The Public Space Committee, think of it as approving what you see. In other words, what's on the surface, what you can see, and think about them as approving the concept or the basic design, the fundamental layout. In other words, for example, this is where the green space is, this is where the sidewalk is, this is how wide the sidewalk is. And then within certain parameters, they maybe get into some of the details, but for example, as one, the question was asked, what kind of landscape materials are going in this? Well, the Public Space Committee doesn't deal with that. We file for a permit to do the work, and we go first to staff and then to the Public Space Committee, and they give their, we'll call it they provide the ruling on the big picture. And then what we do then is go back to staff with this guidance, with these guidelines set in their ruling, and then we work out the details within the guidelines set by the ruling and within the guidelines and requirements of the District Department of Transportation Office and Planning, etc. So we received from the Public Space Committee a ruling which says, and I'll just actually add these items. The applicant will consider including curbside step off in coordination with the Office of Planning and curbside step off means that we had gone in with a tree planter box that was right up against the back of the curb. And what came out of the Public Space Committee hearing is that they would like us to push the tree box in from the back edge of the curb along the street so that there's an area to step off up onto the curb and maneuver around the sidewalk if, for example, your car is parked there. And we are working to incorporate that. PSC approved the use of the London pavers for the sidewalk. There was some mention of this earlier. The London paver is basically a particular kind of pavement stone. It's a standard stone that's been approved in quite a few locations by DDOT in public spaces, on sidewalks, in certain areas of the city. The London paver, what size is it? It's a 2 by 3? 2 feet by 3 feet, 4 by 4 feet, the size of an acoustical ceiling tile, is the standard in this area. So it's approved to use those, and we must file a covenant of maintenance with the Recorder of Deeds for all special paving. By special paving, we were talking about the possibility of using I don't know if it was exactly a London paver, but it was smaller version of it in certain places for access. That's not typically approved, so we would have to work that out with certain conditions with the staff if we choose to go forward. The planners at the sidewalk edge closest to the property are approved. The special paving in the area beyond the sidewalk with plaza design is delegated to planning and DDOT staff for discussion. If we want to proceed with that, we have to show it on the final drawings. The applicant must file a covenant of maintenance. The TEPCO vaults must comply with DDOT standards. That relates to Perry's question about the hedgerow, the hedge around the vault. The applicant must consult with the Urban Forestry Administration with regards to the maximization of the street tree canopy through soil volumes. And we have gotten from the Urban Forester a request, it's a comment, going forward when we work out the final details, that we sit down with this person and work through what our tree volumes will be, how the soil will be put together, how it will be designed, whether we use soil cells, what kind of soil with these all details that Michael Ferguson, Matt Johnson, and Mike will understand and will move to implement. And then, the final one, which is really the sum up, that the applicant will revise and resubmit drawings prior to the issuance of permits. So, after the public space has ruled on all these things and will rule, we hope, in our favor on the curb cut and entrance configuration on the 26th, then we will have a process over time where we will work with staff on the details of whatever's I mentioned in this letter, as well as any other regulations and requirements that go into the final design of drawings, construction drawings to construct what we show. So that's the process. Now,
Great.
Specifically, and there are things that were discussed last time. Streetlights.
Yes.
I guess I could say that. Not sure exactly where to go with that, except to say that. Well, I'll put it this way. The ANC has, Sally, Mary Beth, for example, Karen, they've expressed a preference for a certain kind of street light. We are happy to put that up if DDOT will approve it. They may not approve it this time around. We can always ask a year from now, because this project is a 2-year project, and those streetlights won't go up for a while. But we've talked about that. We'll see. But some of the things we like to do, we can't necessarily get permission to do right now because DDOT has its regulations, and this is the way they want the streetlights. Step off, we talked about.
Yes.
Special pavers, we talked about special pavers. If you go back to the plan, I don't know, we need to call it up, but you see those I guess you call them red squares in there, and then you see below the red squares what it looks like basically more or less a consistent hedgerow with some breaks or, okay. The area above that, what I'll call a hedgerow, is the area, is the seating area, potential seating area called cafe zone. And the area below it, immediately below it, is a through sidewalk that will run from South Borough Project to North. In that cafe zone, we have proposed to put some special pavers. Basically, they're a smaller version of the London paver. We wanted to mix it up a little bit. The landscape architect can come up with a great design. Well, it may be that we won't be able to get OP to agree with that. So that's something that right now we're not confident they'll agree to that, and if they don't, then we're just going to proceed with the London pavers. If an opportunity comes up a year from now to revisit it with OP, we can always do that. We can ask for an amendment. But at this point in time, we're not confident that they will agree with us that we can do that. Point is that basically DDOT needs to maintain things. It's their obligation first to maintain the public space, and so they like to keep things somewhat uniform. I think that's probably the best way I can to rationalize it or explain it. What else? Tree soil. I think we did talk about, I'm sorry I'm asking you to prompt me.
Yeah, tree soil.
And then the tree soils we did talk about. Dave, you brought this up, and you sent me some information on it. And one of the things that I'd say, we're working on it. We see the information you sent. These details, the reason they're not worked out is that until the plan is worked out, and the plan fundamentally, the central piece of the plan is that center area. If you take that center area away, you completely redo the plan. And when you completely redo the design, the basic concept, then you have to redo the details. So we haven't gotten into some of the details yet. I mean, my analogy is, if I'm going to decorate this room and there's the door, I decide to put it over there, and this window goes over here, then I have to completely rethink how I'm going to decorate the room. Completely rethink how I have to build it. Well, it's the same thing here. Now, if we get our approval on the 26th from Public Space, then we can really get into the details and finalize them. With the idea of trying to, where we can, maximize the slope of the trees. Or step off. And I'm not sure about special paver with the street lamps because of the DDOT and OP's conditions. And the other thing that you mentioned are LED devices. One thing that we are looking at right now is possibly permeable pavers. And Matt, correct me if I'm wrong, it would be, where we're looking at them is the zone between the through, what I call the through sidewalk, and the street.
It would be in roughly, say, 6-foot approximate zone there in between, in line with the rest of the tree fence. So it wouldn't be in the main 10.
The breaks between the tree fence.
Could you also make the step-off permeable pavers?
That would be part of it.
Yeah, that's what the LED is.
Yeah, part of, I guess, I think part of it is seeing what DDOT will accept. Part of it is trying to find material that's consistent with the design, the aesthetic of the design. Part of it is trying to figure out how this thing will hold up. You have permeable pavers. What they do is they introduce the runoff down to the subgrade. So when you pull that down, you pull the sediment down, you pull stuff down. It's got to work. It's got to work over time, and it also has to hold up the traffic. So it's something that we're looking at right now. So I think that touches.
Yes,
on
you hit them all. I have one back question that Karen asked about the electrical vaults. That's a fairly big area, and I know at the Public Space Committee hearing, you all accepted, which Karen and I were both very surprised that you accepted their regulation of putting a barrier around it, whether it be a fence or a hedge or something. Is there any progress on what one of the members of the Public Space Committee, I think it was Basil, was looking into with PEPCO as far as DDOT was working with them on making some changes? Has that progressed any further?
I actually, interestingly, I spoke to, I can't remember the details now, but I still come back and say, I spoke to somebody about that a couple of days later. And that's, I'm sorry, I don't have the details.
Okay.
But the short of it is, it's actually a special situation, and not one that would apply here. We have one, the person I spoke with is a consultant who's what we call a dry utilities consultant. He's a consultant, Richter, thank you. Dry utilities consultant, we, along with architects and landscape architects, we hire someone who is an expert in serving as sort of an intermediary between us and the ground. And so what Mr. Bazil was talking about was a new approach to providing transformers and vaults for
Correct. Yeah.
residential. And Mr. Richter told us that it really wasn't
Doesn't apply?
an option.
Okay, well, I guess it's a fairly large space. It's at the end, most people don't know where it is. We have a drawing that you had at Public Space, but you're talking what? You're talking 30 feet by 20 feet of where the electrical vaults are, and that means that cannot be used for what you all were talking about with sidewalk cafe or seating or anything like that, correct?
So one of the things we're hoping to work out with staff is a measure that would allow both the safety concerns that they have and that general traffic will not be walking over the vaults. And one idea of that is to turn back the hedges on either side of the vaults, say 8 feet.
Okay.
And that would divert the traffic around the vaults, but still allow movement within and up the usable space to be occupied. That's what we would like to get approved. And that way it would still be able to function as a seating area where you put seats on top of the non-graded portions, which we've seen throughout the city. And it actually functions. They don't spew any noxious fumes. It's really just fresh air for the electric transformers. It's not a venting system. So that's what we would like to get approved.
Okay.
And that's what we're going to push for.
Okay, good.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
One
So,
other question. Oh, go ahead.
quick.
Do you have a letter from Sam Zimbabwe agreeing to this new plan?
We haven't,
You have it
What I
on
refer to in the,
Okay, I know it's referred to, I just hadn't seen it.
last week of August. Yes. And that is PSA, and that he and just his office is POA, which is chief's office.
Yeah.
So have acceptance, and that acceptance has been uploaded as comment.
Okay, well, we're not, they don't let us in the top system yet, so.
It's there, so yes, we've seen it and confirmed it, but yes, it came, we have it.
Okay, thank you. So is there a resolution that someone's introducing tonight?
there is
Can
a
you
resolution.
introduce it, please?
yes, do you want me to read the entire thing?
No.
Just read what we're resolving.
Okay. Well, mainly it's on the curb cut, which you've all seen, and they were nice enough to present. I can go through it. The first part is the curb cut. The second part is more dealing with the consulting with the Urban Forestry Administration on condition number 7, why soil volume is important. I have referred to 3 different DDOT standards, regulations for the LID, possibly having Saul consider, the applicant consider achieving a beautiful, sustainable tree-shaded avenue in this part of Connecticut Avenue Corridor in keeping with the character of other stretches, and ask the applicant to consider incorporation of forthcoming approved DDOT low-impact development and green infrastructure standards, complementing DDOE stormwater management regulations, which they have met in the public space to the extent feasible and obtainable, and taking into account DDOT's practical experience as reflected in its current Creating Green Streets in DC. It's a very good workshop document. It was presented to the Metropolitan Washington Council of Governments, and also with viewing UDC's upcoming public space, which they have put in quite a few of these items, which I will share with you all. We have the drawings, so I will do that with Saul. Whereas ANC 3F asked the PSC to retain oversight over its soil and tree canopy condition and the forthcoming LID and storm water regulations as it did over the curb cut. Now therefore it be resolved that ANC 3F supports the public space follow-up application of Park Van Ness DDOT tracking number 82330, provided that the applicant signs a covenant with DDOT for the maintenance of any revised materials as follows. Number one, the curb cut at Yuma Street and the revised and resubmitted entrance courtyard, conditions 8 and 9, which is essential to help minimize any traffic disruptions as a result of residential drop-offs and pickups. Number two, the applicant consult and resolve the directives in a timely manner with the appropriate DDOT agencies regarding the other 7 above-mentioned conditions referred to in the attached PSRA conditional approval letter to applicant dated July 31st, 2013. Number 3, the applicant consult with UFA as to the aforementioned methods of increasing soil, pavement, soil volumes, and permeable paving for the enhancement of tree canopy and as much of the public space at 4455 Connecticut Avenue as feasible, and the PSC add to its condition that once this has been completed, the applicant will return to the PSC at a later date for reconsideration. Number 4, the applicant consult with the appropriate city agencies to consider incorporation of forthcoming approved DDOT low-impact development and green infrastructure guideline standards complementing DDOE stormwater management regulations in the public space areas to the extent feasible. At the public space hearing, commissioners, myself, Karen Perry, and Mary Beth will represent the ANC. There are 2 attachments attached to this. One is the previous resolution for the public space, and the second is the condition letter from PSRA. Do you have any comments?
Well, let's see if there's a second first.
Second.
Thank you. Are there any commissioner comments or discussion questions? Start with Manoli.
Oh, I think I may have some of the same questions that Commissioner Summerskill does. There's on page 2, the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th whereas, 7th and 8th. Requests look like they're, and on the 3rd page as well, the first whereas. Just that it's a question about the structure of the resolution, that these are positions that the ANC will be taking and be looking for action. Just as a question about whether or not these are appropriate in the are in whereas clauses as opposed to in the actual items that we are resolving to take a position on. My understanding is the whereas holds, as I've been instructed in recent weeks, holds little weight beyond providing background. And
Correct.
if we are looking to take action or requesting action be taken, that needs to be in the therefore be it resolved portions of
I
the...
did do that.
I don't know
The
if,
soil condition is in number
Then I guess maybe I'm
2,
somewhat
number 3, and number
duplicative,
4.
but I don't know.
Okay, well,
It's mainly
sorry.
bringing up that the
I was looking-
ANC wants these items to be implemented. I know this does not totally, it doesn't address the curb cut. The curb cut is in the first part of the resolution.
then like with this, with the stormwater regulations, oh, it's here, sorry.
Yeah.
Okay,
Each
sorry,
one-
it's just a lot. I
Okay,
was trying to work
right,
work
I'm
my way
sorry.
through it. Well, this is the first time we're seeing this. So I'm working my way through the whereases and the actual,
Well, the fourth, 1, 2, 3, the fifth one for soil, the sixth
so that's what I
paragraph
was
for
trying to count.
soil,
We've got 1, 2, 3, 4.
the seventh one is soil.
So is it necessary to have all these additional, is that just padding?
No, it's not
At the
padding.
top, in the whereases.
I know it's to explain why we want it done, why there needs to be more soil volume for tree enhancement. I guess we could take out the Casey tree one.
And then it all hinges also upon the covenant.
Correct. Yes. There, it's maintained by Saul. The other
Sorry,
reason
just trying
I
to
also
work
did
my way
this,
through it.
I know, it's a lot, and I'm sorry it was belated. It was a lot to put together in a short period of time. The main thing is, a lot of these regulations are not enforced or not on the table yet by DDOT, such as the LID, the soil enhancement that is forthcoming. So to be sure that Saul is up to snuff in 2 years, because this is a 2.5-year project, I feel it's very important that we ask that they do these things now, or at least consider them. I think our Venice vision is going that way. We want to have a beautiful street, and the only way to get that is to have additional soil for these trees to grow, to be big, to have possible LID rain gardens or stormwater management to allow water to water the trees and the plant material. So the only way I could do this, since we do not have these regulations, was to be able to put something in a resolution to enhance what we need done on Connecticut Avenue. UDC has these items. I don't know exactly how they've been able to do it without having these standards by DDOT. I do know that we've been told, and David was there with me, that it's mainly because of what the city council wanted. They wanted to take a public building or project, one of the first public projects, and use it as a guinea pig. And how they did that is they took the master plan, which this commission worked on for quite a few years, Adam and Karen and Bob, and they took that, which is great, thank you. They took that and tried to implement some of these forthcoming guidelines. I am just trying to do this with Saul because they need to be aware of it, and hopefully this will go further. I know this isn't totally public space, but it does get the PDRM agencies involved and able to help Saul or whoever else is on coming up for public space to get on board before these become regulations. So that's why I did it.
Okay, Commissioner Somersville.
Okay, I'm opposed to this plan. I think it's a terrible idea. It emphasizes cars over pedestrians. It puts a 20-foot driveway in the middle of a parking lot, which is in the middle of the sidewalk, which is otherwise pedestrian space. There's no reason that the cars have to cross the pedestrian space. They could easily be drop-offs at the curb with indents on the curb, which the pedestrians would not have to then challenge the cars. The design itself eliminates the Capital Bike Share station that's already been removed for construction, but there's no place to replace it. There's an overemphasis on parking in the building, far more than is needed, especially since the building is 2 blocks from the metro. So I'm going to vote against this, but I don't think it much matters. I think the commission is going to vote for it. and the Public Space Committee is going to support it.
Thanks. Is there any other commissioners with comments? Mary Beth.
Okay. Well, okay, I guess I'll send like Little Mary Sunshine after Bob. I think I would like to commend Commissioner Gresham for the time and the effort that she has put into this resolution on short notice. This is a huge amount of work, and I think that it really reflects the conundrum and the dream that we have. The conundrum is, as Sally said, the laws don't reflect right now what we want to do. What we want to do is green Van Ness and put in pervious pavement and make our stormwater more manageable and sustainable, eliminate erosion, add more trees, create a vibrant, beautiful streetscape. And as Karen pointed out earlier, it's, we've got a lot of spade work to do with OP and DDOT. And so, Manoli, I appreciate your concern for excessive verbiage, but I think there's a good reason to leave all those whereases in there, because I think that in 2 years, hopefully we'll be in a different place. And this, right now, this looks futuristic and like a dream, but I really hope that by the time I roll off in 2 years that, that we're going to start achieving those things.
What makes you think we're going to let you roll off?
Thank you, Karen.
That might be your vision.
David, do you have any comments?
I do.
Well, yeah, I'll just echo what Commissioner Summerskill said, and I don't think it's a good idea to have apartment buildings just kind of have roundabouts in areas that are supposed to be commercial. I understand that further up in the more residential areas that's more common, but in this area we should be trying to emphasize more street traffic.
Thanks. And then Karen.
A couple of questions. One, I need to echo what Mary Beth said and what Sally said. As somebody who lives in a high-rise, you need a place for cars to pull in and drop off, or a guest to come. Whether you like cars or you don't isn't the question in my mind. It's the fact that it's a fact of life that people have cars, people have visitors, people have guests, and you don't want them stopping on Connecticut Avenue in rush hour especially and holding up traffic to drop people off or whatever. I'm not saying it needs to definitely be this design or another design, but as somebody who lives in a high-rise, you would be surprised at the number of people that come with cars. And you can't always drop off on a street, especially an arterial like Connecticut Avenue. I mean, my concern is something that is that we quote in here Casey Tree's study, and a lot of us have not even really seen that study or report. I have a problem with just, I guess, supporting something that I haven't read or seen or our ANC hasn't supported. And maybe we can say we support Condition 7 and list why we do and why soil is important without citing reports that we haven't approved. That's one concern of mine. But then in paragraph number 3 on page number 2, is it meant to say between PPSA Sam Zimbabwe, Associate Director, and PSRA? Or is it TIA, or is that supposed to be TOA again?
PPSA. Oh, sorry, you're right. That should be TOA.
That's what I thought.
Yes.
That's the typo.
That's
okay.
correct. Uh-huh. And also there should be, there are 2 different ones. I do have it on the bottom paragraph on page 1. It should have ANC 3F, which it is on the one. I don't know why it's not on this one.
It said, the Julie knows
Right,
ANC
right,
3F
but it is
public
on that
meeting.
one.
I think it could even say ANC.
Okay.
But I think if you're also on my third paragraph where we have PPSA, when you list Sam Zimbabwe as Associate Director, when you list TOA, I think you then need to list Mr. Cheeks. I don't
That's
think it's
fine.
fair to list one and not the other.
Well, the letter was from Sam. It wasn't from,
But if you're
Oh,
quoting one,
okay.
you know, I think you need to.
that's fine, we can put that in. I don't know his title, though. I think he's manager.
We can look it up.
We can look it up.
Anything else, Karen?
No, but I do have a concern with quoting from reports that our ANC has not
Well, I
approved.
said
or
we
seen.
could
Are you
take that one
proposing
out.
to remove that?
I'm proposing just to remove the KC trees, to leave in the reason, but not quoting from the report.
So wait, just
So
say-
whereas
I think we
ANC
can say
3F,
we support PSA condition number 7.
And not
Because-
say for reasons
Yeah.
to the,
so whereas,
What about-
how about whereas ANC 3F supports PSC condition 7 because, and then we'll delete all this
Yeah,
stuff up
because
to,
a
quote, a tree's ability to grow, blah, blah,
Because the
blah.
tree's ability to grow, yeah.
All right.
So you want
I mean,
me, you want me to put something in there about, okay.
So we'll just
We're just deleting a
delete
few lines.
Yeah,
after
that's-
7 till
That's
8
fine.
trees.
I suggested we take
Okay.
the soil line out.
Okay. Do you have anything else, Karen?
No.
Okay. Is there any other commissioners that have comments or questions?
I would like to make a comment to what Bob and David said.
Okay.
I understand that before you, in the last ANC meeting, you didn't bring that up. I do want to give you some facts, though, Bob and David. There are 30 multifamily residential buildings from your district, Bob, from Porter to Manoli's district, Nebraska. There are 23 multifamily residents with 43 curb cuts. Your building being one of them.
that doesn't mean it's a good thing.
That
Or
doesn't
two,
mean
that
it
doesn't
has-
mean it's a good
I
thing.
think, just to
Well,
defend Bob, I
it's
think
just
it
an-
also
it's
doesn't
just-
mean it has to continue when we're trying to get people out of cars. I totally agree with what Bob and David said, but living in a high-rise, I also know the realities and the facts of life. And, you need the curb cut.
Well, I agree to a certain extent, but not to the extent, with the extent frontage of this building with no curb cut. I
I'm
think
not saying we don't need it.
Okay.
that would be a very big
Has a curb
mistake.
All right.
Comment on the resolution.
Yes.
There's, two things.
If you come up to the microphone closer.
Okay, two things.
Go to the mic.
And you have to
First
lift
is-
it up.
First is there's provision in there in the resolution about returning to the Public Space Committee.
Yes.
That is for what purpose? Because that obviously it's of some interest to us and concern to us because we like to know that when we have a design approved and we're going forward, that that's the design that's been approved rather than some contingency where we have to go back to the same committee and they may change their mind on something.
Right. This
So I'm not sure I understand.
Okay, this is on the soil volume. When you go back to UFA to talk to Sharon Dendy and John Thomas, I think David and myself, and David can address this a little further, one assurance that we will get, it's not just SAW, it's also putting the burden on DDOT, the UFA, to be sure they look at giving correct soil volumes for healthy trees. We're a little nervous that they won't do this.
That's a, Don, sorry. Yeah, that would be, sorry, drifting back to allow you to speak. I would say that would be a pretty significant problem for us from a practical standpoint, procedural standpoint, because if we have to go back to the Public Space Committee, then we're unable to pull a permit. And if we're unable to pull a permit, then that sets off a domino of things.
Yes.
So the Public Space Committee has delegated that to the Urban Forestry, and we will work with the Urban Forestry on that, as we've pledged to do. If we have to go back to public space, then we could be months. And so, and I don't know, and quite honestly, I don't know that it's something that they take jurisdiction over. I mean, what you have is our commitment to work closely with the UFA on that. And we understand the issues involved. I think that when David brought it up at the last meeting Michael said, that's something we have to look closely at. We realize that. I think it's always an issue with the tree boxes getting sufficient soil. But needing to go back to public space, assuming they would take jurisdiction, I'm not sure they would, would mean that we're quite honestly delayed.
I would like to,
So I'd like to ask the commission to reconsider that.
I would like to make a motion that we strike that and just say that the applicant has agreed to consult with UFA on soil volumes and permeable pavement for the enhancement of tree canopy at 44 blah, blah, blah. I also don't feel that first of all, I don't think public space is going to do this or make them come back to another public space committee or change their condition.
I would just strike the
whole
bottom and leave the top.
Well, I don't want to say that. I would like to say the applicant has agreed to consult. It doesn't say the applicant consult with UFA. I mean, you can't have something in a resolve that you don't have an whereas to begin with.
We can have that in the whereas.
You can, but okay. So
I would just say the applicant
Sally,
has agreed to consult
are you
with
open
UFA
to this change? That
as to the
Karen?
I'm open to this change. I knew this was a ringer.
Okay. So given that.
But I don't see a problem with leaving the applicant consult with UFA as aforementioned method.
Yeah, that's fine.
I'm saying we can just leave that.
We can do that, or we can say the applicant has agreed to consult, because I think they've agreed to do it. And they've repeatedly said it. So I don't see, I don't think we should mandate it. I think they've agreed to
Okay,
it.
so
I just think it's a nicer way
the applicant has agreed
to consult
with
UFA
That's fine.
as to the methods. Aforementioned is spelt wrong, by the way.
Okay, wait a minute.
Methods of increasing self-pavement soil volume and permeable pavement for the enhancement of tree canopy in the public space at 4455 Connecticut Avenue.
As feasible.
Well, I think in saying they consult with them, I mean, they're going
Okay,
to do
take
what's
it as
feasible.
feasible.
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, that's kind
fine.
of.
That's fine.
Okay.
I'll leave it.
So Nat, BF Saul, do you have any other comments at all?
The language about the covenant, again, so we're
I
clear
think,
on that.
just to be
It's the
clear-
lead-in language about the covenant.
Where's that one?
It's-
Okay,
it's the
provided the supports the public space follow-up application.
Where's that, Sally?
Provided the applicant
Now,
signs a
therefore,
covenant
be
with DDOT for the
provided-
maintenance of any revised materials.
There should be a comma after the
follows.
material.
Where is that?
There you go.
Because that's
Yes,
actually
that's
kind of
fine.
an important
Now therefore,
piece of
right
punctuation
after the
there.
now therefore.
Provided the applicant signs a covenant with DDOT for the maintenance of any revised materials, comma, as follows.
The
No,
only,
the as follows, though, applies to the first part of the sentence, not to that clause. Public, ANC supports the public space follow-up application, Park Van Ness, as follows. And then you've got a subordinate
as.
clause in here saying, provided the applicant signs a covenant. So
excuse me,
all our support for this entire section is dependent on the covenant. If the covenant is not signed, then none of this other stuff is operative.
just to
From
be
what
clear,
my reading on this.
just to be clear, the only thing the applicant ever signs a covenant with DDOT for is a maintenance agreement if they use materials other than those approved. In other words, if they wanted to use the smaller pavers and not use all London pavers, then you sign a maintenance agreement or a maintenance covenant to take care of the littler pavers.
That's fine, I'm just reading it.
I understand that, so I'm not sure either what this covenant is.
It's covering whatever they
think it's what you
pick for
just
the
said.
curb cut, for the
But that's-
entrance
but-
driveway.
yeah, but
Because
it-
there is some in public space.
I think what you're talking about is other than approved DDOT materials is what you sign a maintenance covenant for with DDOT. Otherwise, that's what the covenant is for, or the maintenance agreement, as they call it. I see you nodding your head. You can't have a covenant for the applicant to resolve and directives in a timely manner, or that the applicant
This is what
consult
we
with the
had in the last one.
No, not about the covenant, it wasn't.
No,
Yes, it was.
just to be clear, as this is written, is actually, I think, written not inappropriately.
Right. I mean,
The
we had it
covenant
in the
only
last.
applies to what you are saying, in my reading of this. It's just our support.
Well, I'm not sure what any revised materials mean. What's a revised material?
Revise,
Because they've used different materials in the area.
Well, I think that's non-DDOT approved materials, not revised materials.
Well, we did in the last one, we provided the applicant sign a covenant with DDOT for the maintenance of the special paving,
Special
irrigation,
papers. See,
and
we're
plant materials.
But you're clarifying it. Here you're just saying revised.
Well, because they don't know what they're putting, they don't know what plants they're putting in the planter
Well, the
yet.
plant, the plant, anything that they put in on,
Isn't the only way they're going to let them put that different stuff in is if you guys
It's to
sign
sign
a
a maintenance-
covenant?
yeah.
So we could
I don't
take them
know.
out if we want.
Will DDOT approve your something bricks without you agreeing to
No.
maintain it?
They
No.
call it a special paver, and if we used a special paver, we'd have to sign a covenant.
Okay.
I think what you're asking is if you use an impervious paver and DDOT's not approved it,
Right.
we push for it and we install it, and we're asking us to maintain it. When in fact, it's a DDOT, it has to be DDOT approved for us to be able to use number one. But if it isn't, you're asking us to maintain it, and DDOT's probably not going to accept that. They're probably not going to accept material to be used in the public right of way that they're not going to be able to maintain. It's in their state.
And I think I could turn it around and say, if DDOT, district this time, not VDOT, if the district says as a condition of approval of something we'd like to do, that we need to sign a covenant, then we will, if we want to go forward, then we'll sign a covenant. Absolutely.
Right, well, that's what it did on the last directive, too. It had it two places.
Does it make sense to delete this?
Yes.
I think so.
I do
don't
too.
understand.
because I don't know what a revised material.
So I guess I don't know. I'm going to propose to remove this covenant part. So basically, it reads, "Now therefore be it resolved that ANC 3 supports public space following the public space follow-up application Park Van Ness for the as follows: 1, curb cut; 2, consult about directives; 3, consult UFA; and 4, look into LID and GI
I would second
stuff."
that.
Sal, are you okay with that change?
Just
Delete.
take out provide the
What do you
applicant signs a
delete?
I
covenant.
got rid of provide the applicant
Right.
signs a covenant.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. Now we have a resolution. I'd like to bring this for a vote. No, not this time. So I'd like to bring this for a vote. All in favor of this resolution? I understand that. Public is not being in this discussion right now.
This is-
I would like to propose this, bring this to a vote. So all in favor of this resolution as modified by these changes? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
We have 5 in favor and all opposed?
Nay.
2, none abstaining. Thank you. All right, next up, we have Andrew.
Thank you.
Oitman.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Andrew Oitman about the River Star program, which is this program that deals with runoff. So, Mary Beth would like to introduce him.
Okay. I'd like to introduce Andy Oatman of River Smart. I first met Andy when I signed up for the program, and he came out to the house and did a great job of identifying all the hideous, environmentally incorrect things in my yard, which I'm hoping to fix soon. So without further ado, thank you, Andy, for being here.
So, Andy, if you don't mind coming up to our amazing microphone here. Thanks.
So very quickly, so I work with the DC Department of the Environment, and I very specifically work on stormwater issues within the district, which is some of the things that had been discussed just in this last conversation. And I work on a program called River Smart Homes with the ultimate goal of taking stormwater and keeping it out of the sewer lines. Most of DC has a good half of DC has one pipe that carries both your sewage and your rainwater out to Blue Plains, and when we get a heavy rain, it overwhelms that pipe, and we end up having raw sewage overflowing into Rock Creek and Anacostia and the Potomac River. Right now, this is happening about 60 times a year in the district, and our program, the River Smart Homes, is designed to help mitigate that sort of at the source point where rainwater falls on residential properties. We also have a program called River Smart Communities, which deals with houses of worship and multifamily properties. We also have a program called River Smart Schools, which works with schools all throughout the district with larger green infrastructure, low impact development practices. But the program I specifically work on has 5 main features that we can install on any home in DC. If you're a renter of the home, you can and get permission from the homeowner. You can have the work done as well. And we have within these 5 features, most of the features, 4 of the 5, the DC government it covers 90% of the cost to install these features. So we have rain barrels, pervious pavement, shade trees, rain gardens, and basescaping, which is using native Chesapeake Bay plants on steep slopes that are prone to erosion. So we have homeowners sign up. There's a little bit of a couple of month wait time because we have quite a bit of demand. And then we send an auditor out to your home. We meet with you for about an hour, explain how the program works, and then walk around your property with you and look for opportunities for some of our stormwater features, our stormwater mitigation features. We have our standard rain barrel captures 132 gallons. DC Greenworks is our nonprofit that installs them. There's a $45 copay per barrel. You can do 2 per home in DC, and it's about a $450 rain barrel that we install for you. And we have 19 different native trees. We work with Casey Trees to install trees on people's properties. If you're interested, Casey Trees comes out to your home. They take a look at your soil. They meet with you. They kind of ask you some key questions as to what you're looking for in a tree, and they make a species suggestion and then flag it. And then they have a major fall planting and a major spring planting. So depending on where you fall on the schedule, you'll get your tree in the spring or fall. There's a $50 copay per tree. They're $300 to $400 trees. Ultimately, that's what they cost, and homeowners pay just the $50 copay. So we also have rain gardens that tip at about 70 square feet. We have a landscape architect come out to your home. You do the design with the landscape architect. We basically put in a 7 by 10, 70 square foot rain garden. There's a $75 copay, and they capture about 600 gallons of stormwater from your roof. And sometimes if we get lucky, we can, if it works out, we'll put a rain barrel in and then do the overflow from the rain barrel into a rain garden. And now we're taking like 700 plus gallons out of the sewer lines. The rain gardens are a $1,200 project. We can do 1 per property. We also have, if the rain garden won't work, we have a program for steep sloped areas that are more prone to erosion, where we can do 120 square feet of native plant, deep-rooted, 3 to 4 foot deep-rooted native plantings that can help aerate soil and absorb a lot of water and are low maintenance so that the homeowner doesn't have to struggle mowing grass on steep slopes or having to deal with an area that causes sedimentation, which is the #1 pollutant for streams, just all over. So it's a major issue, and by being able to come in and work with homeowners to stop that soil erosion going into streams is an important component. And we also have a pervious paver program where we cover the first $1,200 of installing pervious pavement on your property. And basically we have a handful, about 8 or 10 different contractors that can come out to your home, give you estimates, whichever one you feel comfortable with. You just let us know, and we pay directly to the contractor the first $1,200 of the project. So we've done about 5,000 homes, 5,500 homes so far. We've at least installed one feature since 2009. We get about 200 to 300 applicants per month right now, and it started with 1 person. Now there's 3.5 people running the program. And so, if you have, if you'd like more information, I can give you my card. If you have other groups that you would like me to promote this information to, or at least send them a blurb, an email. We have plenty of demand. We've been funded 3 times now through the EPA's Chesapeake Bay program, which is specifically designed for non-point source pollution mitigation. And so we work, most states that get that funding are dealing with agriculture, and we kind of have a special exemption in DC because we have 0 agriculture in the district, and so we were able to use that funding for stormwater mitigation instead. And so it's kind of a unique program, and there are other programs in other counties, like in Maryland and Virginia and throughout the U.S., but ours is one of the most progressive programs in the eastern seaboard. So I don't know if you guys have questions.
Great. So
It's a really big crowd. I don't know if I can handle this.
No, thanks for this info, because I'm gutting my yard, so I just signed up actually while you were talking. So I'm on your waiting list, I guess. But I don't have any questions, but this sounds really interesting, and I think
It's pretty cool. I mean, even if you don't pursue some of the things that we suggested, I try to provide you with some ideas and at least provide the environmental education to homeowners so they understand that what their gutters are doing to their yard, and what their individual decisions are doing to a much larger, to the streams and to a wider scope of impact. So,
cool.
It's a great program. Thank you.
yeah.
Do any commissioners have a question?
And just we are proud owners of a River Smart Home supported rain garden, and I think it's fantastic and fully support the program. And also one of the buildings in my district has been working with the River Smart communities on stormwater management on their property, and I think so far had some success in getting at least a plan, and now the next steps are a question. So thank you again.
Yeah, the River Smart Communities program is growing very quickly, so hopefully we can continue to do more. We work with DDOT all the time on their projects, like these. So I know that they're doing a lot of research to figure out which types of pavers are really working, and we can remove the maintenance mystery that comes up sometimes that I've heard from other people. So.
Andy, I heard through the grapevine that the Lafayette school community was a River Smart, like a green laboratory.
Yeah. So
how do we do that?
Well, Lafayette School, and there's an area in Petworth. There's 2 areas where so right now we've got roughly, in very rough numbers, sort of on average about $15,000 to $2,000 that we can kind of work with, where homeowner pays a copay, we kind of put the money in to their home. And in the Lafayette Square area, and there's an area of Petworth, Allison, Georgia, I forget the third, Western South Street, but there's a 3-block area there where we tried doing $5,000 worth of work per home in that area, and we did a 1-year baseline study for both of those locations, and we're going to be doing a 3-year post implementation study, and that will sort of dictate how we decide to change, flex and change the program over the next few years. I think it was a special program. I think that if you're looking to do larger projects, it would probably be a good idea to start with the communities, River Smart communities, and kind of go from there.
Was that, didn't you all just do a day tour, like a Sunday?
It was this past Sunday, they did a walkthrough.
Oh, they did?
Yeah.
Will they be doing that again anytime soon for?
Maybe my coworker, Steve Sari, would be the one to contact on that.
Okay. Because a couple of my constituents weren't able to make it, so they asked if they were going to redo it again.
I would imagine. I mean, it's going to be going on for quite a while, so.
I heard about it through Alex Sanders of Rock Creek Conservancy.
Right. Okay.
I think they were a partner
Yep,
organization.
Right,
Yep.
but it wasn't announced to our ANC. I got it from Alex also, so that would be good to.
I mean, I can contact,
Okay.
find out who to contact first to see if they're going to do any more tours of that. So.
Yeah, give me my card.
great. Does any other commissioners have a question?
Yeah. If you Google DDOE River Smart, it's the first thing that comes up, and it's like a very quick application. It's like your name, address, zip code, email. Yeah. The whole River Smart program has it. There's even a section you can click on called Green Up PC, and you can actually play with. It shows you a footprint of your home, and you can draw in a green roof, or draw in impervious pavement, or a rain garden, and see how much stormwater you can mitigate. And then click on the virtual rain garden and see what kind of incentives there are for that kind of feature. So it's kind of a cool thing to play with. We have a green rebate program where we rebate $5 per square foot. Also, it's not directly through River Smart, but it's a stormwater thing that I try to talk to people about.
Cool. Thank you very much. This is
Yeah.
very
Thank you,
interesting.
Andy.
Thank you.
Do you have handouts?
I have one set of information.
But I mean, I just Googled DC River Smart and
Yeah,
it
it
came
comes
up,
right
and
up,
it
but
was,
if you want
there's a ton of stuff on
Okay,
here.
we'll put it in with the file.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, so next up on our agenda is discussion regarding application for curb cuts at 3600 Albemarle Street Northwest in preparation for the building of 2 new houses on the lot in addition to renovation of existing home. Commissioner Lowell, do you want to talk about this and explain what you want to do?
Yeah, we just received the application by VDOT about the curb cuts, and they wanted to know our recommendation and any thoughts that we had. So talking to the neighbors, the main concern that I've heard so far that would apply to the curb cuts were just concerns about damage to the neighboring houses or possible damage to neighboring houses and structure, including the walls and water drainage. And the neighbors just wanted some insurance that independent engineer would take a look at the plans on the property and make sure that no damage was happening to the house, to their houses.
Okay, thanks. And then is someone, I guess, do you mind introducing yourself?
Yeah. Hi. So my name is Donald Malnati.
Would you spell your last name?
Yeah, Malnati. And we have purchased that property and are putting, dividing it up and putting 3 houses on it. So this is the first thing that we're doing, actually, because in order to design where the houses go and all that, we needed to get the curb cuts. We needed to confirm where they went. And in that process, now I don't know, I did bring plans, but I guess I could lay them out on the table, and I have some of those pictures. I don't know if it's appropriate, or has anybody seen any of this material?
So I think you circulated, David,
Yeah.
you circulated
We have
PDF, so we've seen
Some of
it.
it.
Yeah.
So, in our application, which we put in I think June, there's been a lot of feedback between us and VDOT and the various agencies in it, and in that process, we discovered we could only do 2 curb cuts, and that we actually have to get rid of the existing one because it's too close to the intersection. And so 2 of the houses are going to share 1 curb cut, and then there's 1 curb cut for the one that's on. So there's 1 going on 36th Street and 1 on Albemarle.
Okay.
Okay.
And then have you already subdivided it into the 3
Yes, I
plots?
believe so, yeah.
Okay.
When you say you believe so, this says proposed, Lot A and proposed.
Right.
Has the subdivision application been approved by the district government and by the surveyor?
The truth is, I'm handling the design of the curb cut end of this, and when I got it, it showed the lot division, so I made the assumption that it's already been done. That was handled by a different person, so
Because I don't think we can approve curb cuts without knowing if there's even a legitimate subdivision.
Correct.
Okay.
I mean, you have to be on tax records also that it's been
Subdivided.
I know with mine, it took quite a long time to get.
Okay, yeah,
So-
I know the property was purchased, actually, I don't know exactly, it's probably been at least 3 months.
It doesn't
No.
matter when it's purchased, it's a question of when the subdivision plans have been drawn up
Filed.
and each of these lots approved as meeting DC zoning code requirements.
I mean, the lots meet the zone, you know, the requirements and all that. The part of the, I think part of, I remember discussing this with the architect, and they were saying that they wanted to make sure that we got the curb cuts, which is why we went through this process, and I think we have them figured out where they could go. And, you know, I met with the arborist and all the other folks.
I understand that, but I think the first step is making sure we have an approved subdivision. If not, you can't approve curb cuts and you can't design a house. And there's nothing here that's, you know, for,
You can't get a permit.
you can't get, we
You
can't.
cannot get a building permit.
And there's nothing here that says what the lot sizes are, or anything
Yeah,
else.
there is.
Not on what I'm
Well,
looking
we
at.
don't,
Well,
there's
I'm
only
sorry,
two
but yeah,
sheets.
Definitely, the plans that we have all of that on. I mean,
But it doesn't show, I mean, you don't know, I guess my question is, we can't approve something without this is what we received.
Okay, yeah.
It says proposed lot A,
proposed,
proposed lot B, proposed lot C.
There is one more sheet, perhaps. Doesn't have right there. It's a very simple sheet. That's, it has the lot size.
But it doesn't show that this has been approved, and that's what I guess I'm getting at. And we don't have plans for the houses. You can't do curb cuts without construction drawings. Are these lots going to be sold to individuals?
I believe one would be sold, I mean, actually, they're gonna be sold as the houses are built.
Are they
But-
spec houses?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
that answers that
Actually, there's
question.
one house that's existing.
Yes,
Right.
that's this
There's
one right
one.
here.
And the rest are going to be built as spec houses?
Yes.
And how much square footage in each house?
I don't know for the specific houses. The designs for the specific houses aren't done yet.
Because, and the reason we're saying that is DDOT, a public space does not approve a curb cut to a house that they don't have a drawing of the house. The reason being, if the homeowner wants to rearrange the house on the lot,
I'm
then.
a little confused by that because one of the comments that I had from one of the reviewers was that, in fact, I had to put that the houses were going to be on a future and separate permit.
I understand that, but you still need a house design to know where the curb cut's going to be. I mean,
Well, a house location, that is what, I mean, you're absolutely right. You need to have, that's why it's been sort of figured out that there's going to be a house there.
I
and a house
understand that,
here.
but how do you know where the driveway is going to be to the house? I'm assuming
This is
these
what-
houses are going to have garages.
Yes.
How do you know where you're going to place the garage? If I buy Lot C, and you show me that you've got a house design, let's say,
Right.
and I say, well, gee, that's great, but I would like to add a family room or a business or instead of a garage here, I'd like my garage here, because I want to turn what you're proposing as the garage into a den or or an office.
They're putting the garage into the house.
Yeah, no, I mean, this was intended to diagrammatically show that this is where the garage is going to be, this is where this garage is going to be.
But if I did buy a house and I want to change it, I mean, if you're building a house for me, because these are spec houses, but in a lot of cases, people buy the lot and then you design a house, or even with
they
a spec
design-
house.
No.
Typically, we design it and build it.
And build
I
it,
mean,
and
this
then
is-
somebody buys it
This
as
is
a
a
spec
commitment,
house.
basically, that these are where
Right.
the houses are going to sit. This is where the garage is going to be, and that's what sort of drives where the curb cut is and where the driveways are.
So if you're saying I buy Lot C, because I have to take the house that you've designed and I can't make any changes?
Generally, that's what we have, yeah, we have, I mean, we've been building in DC for, I don't know, about 10 years now, and I must admit that we have never yet built a custom house for somebody before we just build a house and then sell it. I mean, that's been the way we've done it.
This shows the dimensions of the whole lot. It doesn't show the dimensions of each of these individual lots. It kind of does, but not really. And what's the dimension on this lot?
For which part of it?
I guess what I'm saying, I mean,
See, this is the size this way.
Yeah,
and
it's
this is the
got it.
size this way, this is the size this way, this is the
112.
size this way.
by 15.
But we don't know if the subdivision's actually been approved.
No. That's the main.
That's the big question.
We could put that in the letter that we send back to.
Yes,
DDOT.
you certainly, I mean, obviously, we would need to have the subdivision in order to do this. What we were really trying to do is, it's, I guess, somewhat akin to what the earlier presentation was, in that if we had to sort of find out what, because we had proposed to use one of these curb, like, for example, there was an existing curb cut here. We had proposed to use that for that house, but they said that we couldn't do that we had to share, the two of the houses had to share one, and we could have, so we placed it far enough away from the intersection, and we, you know, there's some existing trees, we located those, and two of them have to be moved. And so all the reviewers so far have approved where this goes. So now that we know that, then, you know, I mean, that drives a lot of what our design is.
I'm not saying it doesn't, but I think the thing that, and I don't know if you can make a phone call tonight, the key issue to me is, has this subdivision of this one lot been approved? Because if it hasn't been, you can't design houses, you can't put in curb cuts, you can't do anything.
Okay, the zoning code basically says that, you know, you have to have a certain lot minimum, and these lot lines meet all of that.
I'm not saying it doesn't, sir. I think
Okay.
the,
So I think we all get to you. I guess that's fine. So I guess, David, do you have a resolution you want to propose, and then we can talk about that instead of just going back and forth over this?
Yeah, sure. I first wanted to see if any neighbors want to bring up any issues, or. No. All right. Then I guess I'd like to offer a slightly modified letter to the one that I passed around earlier.
I haven't seen a letter.
I haven't seen a letter.
The one that I emailed you guys?
I never
It's
got
not
it.
a letter, it's a paragraph.
Yeah, I would just write back to DDOT stating ANC 3F requests that a condition be added requiring that the permit holder hire an independent engineer to evaluate the property and site plan in order to ensure that any development will not damage the surrounding houses or structures, including walls bordering neighboring properties, or affect water drainage onto neighboring properties. And we can also put in a sentence there stating that ANC 3F requests that the property is subdivided before any curb cuts are approved.
David,
So is there a second of that resolution?
Second.
Seconded by Bob.
Commissioner Lowell,
I
one
have a
quick.
point of information.
Okay.
So
Is it a
Manoli.
letter or is it a resolution? To send a letter?
We send, well, we write back to them. We would send a letter.
With a form.
Right. They basically sent a form, and we would write out something and attach it to the back and mail
This
it
is
back
a
to them.
DTOPS application from public space, correct?
Correct.
Okay, you can write a letter or you can do a resolution,
Right.
but we don't
We
have
don't
a
have
letter
anything.
from you. We have a paragraph on an email.
Right. That's just what we'd be sending. I called Katrina Felder today and asked her if that would be the kind of thing that we would send them, and she said yes.
Except for one thing, what you've written is not enforceable by public space, and that's not a public space issue, so they can't attach that to a permit.
Right. Well, I talked to her and I asked, would this be the kind of thing that we send? And she said yes.
Yeah, but she's just saying yes to anything, but I got to be honest.
I'm glad you got her.
That is not something that the Public Space Committee can enforce. You can't force somebody to hire an architect. That's a DCRA issue.
Right,
When somebody files for a building permit. That's not in the public space application. And it's not something that the public space can condition or force an applicant to do.
If we let them know our concerns, they can decide what they want to do with it.
David, I understand that, but I can't support something that, knowing that, number one, that we don't know if there's a legitimate subdivision, which is the first issue, and second, I find I can't, in all good conscience, support sending them something that they can't condition an applicant on, an application on, because it's not within their jurisdiction. The only thing they have jurisdiction over is curb cuts, and whether they're designed properly, whether they're the proper width, where they go onto a lot. would have to be public space. They can't tell DCRA what to condition in a building permit or force somebody to hire someone. That's not within their purview.
Maybe I should ask, I wasn't exactly sure what the ANC's, role in this is. I mean, I didn't know if anybody would object or, had some conditions or something, but if there aren't any objections, is it just possible to say that there are no objections?
Sir, I do have an objection. I wish I could tell you that. My objection is I don't know whether you have a subdivision.
Okay, so the objection would be that without a subdivision, but if there's a subdivision, it would be okay? Is that?
I don't know because I guess I have questions on these plans. What is and it was very hard to read from these little things as to what the length. Yeah, but what the length of the driveways are, the width,
We got
the
electronic.
paving materials.
With no backup information. I have requested in the future that commissioners hand us drawings that we can read.
Okay, so anyway, this is not really relevant to the resolution that we're talking. So does anyone have a discussion about the resolution that David?
I don't have a resolution.
What
So
resolution?
David is resolving to send a letter to DDOT that effectively states what?
It effectively states that the neighbors are concerned about damage to the surrounding houses or structures, and that we request that a condition be attached to the permit, stating that the permit holder hire an independent engineer to make sure that there won't be damage to the surrounding houses or structures, or any effect on the water drainage onto neighboring properties.
Yeah, that's what it gets rid of.
That's not a public space issue.
No, from the houses.
But the issue we're addressing right now is the curb cut.
Right, but there are several, in the PDF I sent around with the permits, you can see that there are several conditions attached to the permit about construction, about basically various things that will go on when they build these houses.
Originally, what was sent around was something that DDOT put together from the applicant's submission, that these aren't conditions. This just describes the work to be done.
Three things that you
It says provide 2 new curb cuts for 2 new houses and 1 renovated house to be constructed on 3 lots.
Right.
Remove 2 trees. That's just something that the applicant sent in.
If you look on the PDF that was sent, on the first page, it has conditions at the bottom. And
But
it
that's
starts
just saying,
with-
wait a minute.
there's 3
Wait a
pages
second,
I have.
Sally. No, this says conditions. All work must comply with all district regulations and statutes. This is on everything. Extended restoration may be required. This is a standard form that DDOT sends out with every application.
Right.
It
Well-
doesn't necessarily apply to this project.
Like I said, I called Katrina Felder, who is the contact person, and asked her if this would be an appropriate thing to send, and she said it was. Maybe she was just telling me what I wanted to hear.
Well, she might have said, is this the idea? I mean,
Okay, so we have a resolution. If you don't agree with what's in it, you can vote against it. That's fine. Now, does anyone else have a question or
is the
a
resolution just
modification?
that one paragraph?
Yes.
Well, I have a question. How are you going to move large trees? There are 2 trees on that public space, on the little, the only thing I got was this.
I think they would probably be cut down and new ones would be replanted because they're paying the fees.
There's
That's
two
what.
trees.
And they need to be removed, because they said that we couldn't actually move them. We have to remove them, and then we're going to put new ones in. And the reason that we have to remove them is that the trees are not allowed within 12 feet of a curb cut.
Correct.
So those trees
Well,
are.
just the
and
drawing
one of them
says-
is about an 8-inch diameter, and the other one is it's a 5-inch.
One is
maybe
fairly
6.
big, one is small. One is a small cherry tree, 5.5 caliber. The poplar is a 9-inch caliber tree.
Those are the.
And they're actually both pretty nice looking, so.
Yeah.
Okay. So does anyone have any more questions or comments on the resolution? that
Okay,
David's
the
made?
resolution is going to be is a letter
To D
which,
dot,
to DDOT with just
responding.
that one, approving this application with that one condition? Is that what I'm hearing?
Requesting that that condition be added.
Is it a letter or an email?
But you're supporting the curb cuts?
Correspondence.
No, it's just
Wait a minute.
sending it back, stating that this is our concern.
So you're not approving
But
or
you're not-
disapproving?
No.
Okay,
Am I to understand that
If-
this is?
if I may
not
make a
gonna get
suggestion.
support, or-
You may.
We're advisory, so it really doesn't matter.
if I may make a suggestion,
Great, Bob.
Thanks.
That was quite a statement.
But I would like to get, I'm
if I may make a suggestion.
Okay, Karen,
Yeah.
what's your suggestion?
I would like to modify David's quote letter
Okay,
to say, because since he's not approving or disapproving, to say ANC 3F is not taking a position on this application because we have the quote following concerns. One, we do not know if we have a legitimate subdivision. Two, there are concerns regarding whatever David said in his thing,
Neighborhood concerns.
the neighborhood
Neighborhood
concerns.
okay.
I mean, that's like passing the buck to me, but.
No,
and-
okay,
And
but
the
I
letter
think-
also has to indicate who represents who's going to represent that commission,
Okay,
position at the
Space
Public Space Committee hearing.
okay. So I guess, David, what do you think about changing the format of the response to what Karen said?
Is it friendly or hostile?
I don't know.
I don't know yet.
Well, I mean, that's for David to
That's for
decide.
David.
Right? If it's friendly, you accept it. If it's hostile, then we take a vote on it.
I would just add the ANC 3F. If we're going to put all our concerns there, ANC 3F supports the curb cuts if the following conditions are dealt with.
Well, that's, then you're
different.
approving.
You're approving
stating
the-
a position,
That's a different
David.
thing.
Then
You
you're
just told
approving
us
it,
that you
weren't-
weren't going to state a position.
Well, yeah, originally I was just going to,
But you're supporting it with a condition that that the Public Space Committee can't accept. That's what I'm why I don't understand it.
right, and then they can decide what to
But
do.
but I'm telling you flat out, we're there
We were
all
there
the
for
time.
10 hours.
Okay, that's
Spend
fine.
10 hours
Then
there. They
okay, then
can't
vote
they
vote
can't
against
support
vote
something
against
that's not
it.
within their jurisdiction.
And vote against it, I guess.
Okay.
So
Is there a
okay.
second?
So the modified resolution is to send a letter to DDOT that states that ANC 3F will support the curb cuts if the inspector looks at the building walls and things.
Yeah, and
And
we
that
make
there are
sure that
subdivisions.
And the
There's
subdivisions are properly
subdivisions
completed.
are properly.
Okay. Is there a second for this brand
Second.
new resolution? Thank you, Bob. All right, I'm just going to call a vote on this new resolution. All in favor of this, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Nay.
3. Abstaining? 2. Okay, did not pass. So let's try again.
How about this?
I will
Okay.
propose a resolution that we send a letter to DDOT. First, we'll say we oppose the curb cuts if the plans have not split the I don't know, the lot into the 3
There's
squares.
not an approved subdivision.
Subdivision plat.
Plan.
Plat.
Plat, A2, plat. An approved subdivision
this.
plat.
If,
From DCR.
from DCR and
Yes.
zoning, if the plat has been subdivided in accordance to these plans, and we'll attach it or reference it, then we will support the curb cuts, provided, I'll add his, provided the people get an independent person to look at the retaining wall and other issues that he mentioned before. So that's my new resolution.
Can I ask one question?
Who's second?
Well, is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Millie.
Ask, discussion.
Yes, David, or owner builder. I've thought that land was fairly steep. how are you able to do the curb cuts and get driveways up the embankments?
It is very steep, and so.
By looking, from what I saw, the grade.
Let me see.
Let's manage the water runoff.
Well, part of what, and in fact, I spoke to David about this one. There's a house next door right here, and when you go up the stairs, you go up. You probably go up about 10 feet.
Mhm.
It's very steep.
Yes.
So you get up to that, and that's their first level. These houses will be very similar. The existing house is like that, and there's a large amount of steps going here. So there's this is going to dig out into the bank, come up a bit. I think it rises probably 3 or 4 feet from the sidewalk up to where this area is, and the driveways and the garages in the basement level. So these stairs go up to the first floor level. These houses are set up similarly, and so right now there's about a 20-foot differential from here to the sidewalk. We have to cut that down to make it be about a 10-foot differential, so that when you go up on the first level, you can walk out into your backyard, without having to go up a bunch of stairs. And the lot next door is about at that same level, only right next to the house there's a big retaining wall that actually holds back this dirt. So we're proposing to remove much of that dirt, and in fact, I would talk to this neighbor about taking down their retaining wall as well. And so it will open this up a bit. We're going to put some retaining walls back here to we're going to preserve as many of the large trees on the site as we can, and that's going to require some retaining walls back here, and one that divides. This lot will be lower than this lot, because there's a couple of very large trees here that we're preserving. So, it is tricky.
No, it's not.
It's not in the
It's
tree
not
and
in
slope.
tree and Not in slope. the tree and
No.
slope?
I don't think so. It's
It's
in the
not.
tree and slope overlay light, I think, versus the
No, it's
main,
not. There's
not
not.
even in the light?
No.
Because this is the
This is
west side.
Wakefield.
west
North
side,
Boulevard.
okay.
There's not,
Wakefield,
nothing.
Are any of
there's
these
quite a
retaining?
few, no, so what are you telling me?
So what I'm telling you is
Tell me what the
is
grade
that
is. I mean, is it a
This
3-foot?
driveway only goes up about maybe 4 feet into the garage, because then the first floor level where you actually enter the house is above the garage.
No, I understand, but from the curb cut to where you go into the house, are we that, are we that, are we that?
We're probably, the
What's
most that
the
you can really go up
percentage
is about
grade?
12% slope, so it's probably 10% slope, I'd say.
Really?
Yeah.
For both those are only
For
10%
this one-
slope?
Yeah, well, for this one, and then see, the thing that works in our favor here is that Albemarle goes up. It actually,
Yeah,
this
that
is the
goes
lowest
down,
point of the
that
lot.
goes
It
up,
comes
right.
up to the corner, and then it goes up this way. So, we're actually getting relatively high into the lot once you get over to here. But the differential between this pad here and the sidewalk here is about 3.5 feet, as I remember. It's about 298 here, and it's about 301 there.
Can I raise some issues with you? Because I'm looking at what Commissioner Lowell sent us from the original TOPS thing, and it says basically here that additional driveway entrances cannot be greater than 12 feet in width. Option B shows a curb cut of 16 feet, which does not meet DDOT standards.
Okay, now let me just clarify. As I said, we put the first application in June. The existing curb cut was actually 16 feet, which is what we had put into use.
Okay.
And so there's been a lot of comments and a lot of changes in the plan since then. So yeah, the curb cuts, they're only 12 feet, that's what's allowed by DDOT. They are, on this big plan here, it's type D, it's a special kind of DDOT, all of that stuff has been worked out in the, and I'm not sure when, Mr. or Dave, when you got that particular, the
End of August?
Yeah, let's see, even since then, there have been comments and things happen. So, the latest issue of that, there's huge, the comments, they just keep coming, because each time it was a comment, we put in a new thing, and then there was another, it went back and forth quite a bit. So from that document, you'd have to look at the very end of all of those comments to really get it. And at this point, everything has been approved with the exception of fine arts, which I'm not sure why they haven't.
Commission of Fine Arts.
Yeah, I don't know why they would have anything to do with it. And the ANC, and I think everybody else is approved, OP.
I wish I had that, because from what we
I
have,
I do have one copy of it.
well, I'd like to see it, because from what we were sent, there's a lot of objections in here to a lot of the
There
design.
were quite a few, this is the one, I just printed this off today. So, that's the only copy of that I have.
Okay.
I have a second to read it?
As Karen looks at that, is there any other comments on the resolution I proposed?
Can you restate the resolution?
Sure. We'll write a letter to DDOT. We will oppose this if the plat has not been split into 3 lots, whatever the correct verbiage, technical language is for that. If it has, we will support the 2 curb cuts, provided that we request that an independent
Water
person, blah, blah, blah. So that's where we're at.
I'll second.
Oh, it's been seconded.
Yeah, okay.
Now that we're discussing it, I'm looking at this new revised,
I can't remember.
I'm looking at this new revised thing, and not everything has been approved. They've been approved with conditions, and those conditions are that you change certain things.
Well, there are conditions. If you read what the conditions are.
I understand that, but if you've
it-
printed this today, there's still concerns about the project, and they're still saying that your plans don't conform to DDOT approved standards.
That's not exactly what that says.
Yeah, they are.
There are conditions that, in other words, when you build it, you have to build it according to, that's what those conditions are.
No, it says, talks about DDOT standards. DDOT is not, I mean, I'm looking at this for the first time. I have a problem, I guess I have a problem with approving something, since we go to public space quite often, and we have a very, very good reputation there for doing the right thing and knowing what we're doing. I have a very big problem with approving something that I haven't seen, where there's still conditions showing, where we have a condition that doesn't meet, that DDOT can't enforce. I mean, I would rather send it in saying we have no position at all, because we just got a lot of this information tonight and didn't have time to review it, and we don't know if there's a subdivision
I would
plat
suggest we table it, ask them
to postpone it.
until we get more information. And that you find out that it's.
Is that a motion to
that it-
table?
That it's been subdivided and you have a
I agree.
accountable plat.
Okay, I understand, I think I can kind of see what's going on. So let me tell you what would be valuable for me, because we're trying to make progress on, we have to cut architects loose, we have to do a lot of things. in
Yep,
order to
I
do this.
know.
And until we are pretty certain that we're going to get the curb cuts where we think they are, we don't want to do that. So, if the subdivision is done, or, when it gets done, I'm sure it will get done. If it's not done now, if it's in 2 months or whenever, when it gets done, are there any reasons that you see that this would be that there would be objections to this from the ANC? I'm just kind of asking. I mean, it doesn't appear to me that there are anything other than, making sure that we have the subdivision, and certainly we'll have an engineer that will do all the civil and the structural drawings. So certainly we will meet those conditions. But I
No,
mean,
not this way.
in other words, I'm relatively on good ground here if I go make some plans. That's all I'm trying to really, and I understand, okay, so if it gets tabled another month, I mean, I'll make sure we have the subdivision the next time we come and all that. But
Sir, we have a motion on the table. I'd like to second that until we get the information and until we can review some of this stuff that you provided today. Because there
All
are,
right, so we have my original motion, but I will.
No, you can
The
have a
motion is to
subsidiary
table your
motion.
motion.
I know.
the motion's to
There's
table the motion
subsidiary motion.
So,
until next month when we have further information.
I'm going to vote down the table.
I'm new to this, but it feels to me like you're putting the cart before the horse. It feels to me like you're in a hurry and you're trying to be efficient, but I just don't feel like I've got the information that we need. It just all feels very slapdash, and I don't think that's how we want to develop in our neighborhood, honestly.
Okay, so right now, we have a motion to table. If we table it, so I'll motion to table, and then we should send a letter to DDOT stating that we would like to confirm that the plat has been split before we make any review. Is that
I think-
acceptable?
I would like to modify the motion.
Okay, so I guess my comment
Let
on
me
the motion
motion
to
for-
table is that if we table it, nothing goes to DDOT, it gets approved. Done.
I think here's what, I would like to make, I would like to modify, I would like to modify Sally's motion if she'll accept it as a friendly amendment.
Well, there's
That we-
Sally's motion.
Her motion was just to table.
You can withdraw your motion to table.
Can you withdraw it? I'm going to make it,
Sure.
remake it. Sally withdrew it. I'm going to remake it. That we make a motion to table this application until next month, and that we send a letter to DDOT stating that we did not have enough information and we did not know whether a subdivision plat had been approved, that we did not have construction drawings for the house, that in order to assure that the curb cuts are where they are on the lots, and that there were other concerns expressed in the top system that we did not have, that we could not address because we did not have the answers at our duly noticed ANC meeting on Tuesday, whatever.
September 17th.
And that we have some flexibility to write this letter.
Second.
There was already a motion.
So my
on
original
the-
motion-
There was already a motion on the.
True.
On the floor.
But doesn't the motion to table take precedence over that?
But
really.
but the motion to, you can't actually withdraw, but the motion to table was withdrawn. So you're proposing a.
New motion to
A new
table.
resolution.
So
A
here,
motion- you're
so I will withdraw my motion, and
you're just asking him to
we're just,
withdraw.
so.
Don't you love Robert's rules?
You like Robert's
I
rules?
love
Adam's rules now. So I'll withdraw mine, and then
I'm glad you know.
whatever Karen said is her motion, that's the one on the table. Is there a second for what Karen said?
Second.
Okay. Is there any discussion on this new Karen Perry motion? Otherwise, okay, then let's vote on it. All in favor of Karen's motion, which is basically to send a letter saying those 10 things. Why we need more time and don't know.
And ask them to postpone
Ask them to postpone.
the application.
All in favor of that, say aye.
Aye.
See, one's 4 in favor, all opposed?
Aye.
3. All right, 4-3, passes. All right, next,
Could I ask you,
Manoli.
sir, when you do the back to us, would you send some drawings that
What was
we
the,
all have?
first
not
vote?
just
Why
like
don't I
chart?
just hand these out? I mean, this is, I mean, I can certainly give these to you.
Sure, that's easy.
I'll
Now, are these the final plans?
Wait, what was that resolution?
232. My resolution.
Okay. Yeah.
What was the, who voted for what?
Thank you.
For this one right now?
Sally, does that show whether there is a subdivision?
That
plat?
was
That's what I was going to
3, 2, 2.
Right, but votes.
Who voted?
Yeah,
Me
No.
and
There's no
who
subdivision.
voted against it? You.
I voted for David
This
for
one
it.
shows much more.
Okay, you voted with David for it.
We were the
Sally-
two
He needs
votes.
a deed.
It was
Okay,
Mary Beth,
I abstained
myself,
with Manoli.
Wait a minute.
I'm Manoli.
I mean, again,
Mary Beth, Sally,
Bill,
and I.
232.
Karen voted no.
Anybody else I should give these to?
David probably.
Yeah, okay, I'll give you one of these.
All right, so next topic, Manoli.
Okay.
You want to talk about neighborhood bikeway?
Did we just vote on something?
You
No.
did.
He was
Yeah.
going over the vote before.
Oh,
No,
Okay,
we're done. We voted.
I,
We're done. Manoli, bikeways.
So I am proposing a resolution regarding DDOT Notice of Intent 1387 PPSA related installation of neighborhood bikeways on Jennifer Street Northwest of 41st Street Northwest. So neighborhood bikeways neighborhood bikeways are low volume according to DDOT's information materials. Low volume, low speed streets that have been optimized for bicycle travel through treatments such as traffic calming, wayfinding signage. Wayfinding signage is helpful, and pavement markings. We were not given notice of this because most of this passes through 3E and 3G, but, and as I am loath to weigh in on other ANC's business, this actually does have an impact on 3F in kind of an odd way. So the neighborhood bikeways, we're not so concerned about the 41st Street aspect. It's really the Jennifer Street. So it goes from Western to Nebraska. And it was in Rock Creek 2 livability study. It creates a direct east-west bicycle connection, expands bicycle network in Northwest, and it connects cyclists with Rock Creek Park. And this is what is a little bit curious about this. If you go to the maps, if you take this one that has Jennifer Street and Chevy Chase Parkway and connect it to Jennifer Street and Nebraska Street, so it looks like this. What you have is the Sharrows running down Jennifer Street and up Jennifer Street. But then when it's on the downside, where it terminates at Nebraska Avenue, this is an odd way, in my reckoning, to connect cyclists from Jennifer Street to Rock Creek Park. Because you are left as a cyclist at that point with one of two options, which is cut across Nebraska Avenue, which seems like an odd recommendation to be crossing across Nebraska Avenue where there is no crossing, no legal crossing, or ride against traffic, or ride up Nebraska Avenue, cross at Connecticut, and ride back down Nebraska. It's possible that I'm misreading the recommended way for cyclists to travel on DC streets, but I don't think I am.
I think you take the sidewalk in that case.
Yeah. So, anyways, maybe that is the recommendation: sidewalk going against traffic. But it seems odd that to me that the district's plan for cyclists actually leaves cyclists but with little option but to ride on the sidewalk against traffic or on the street against traffic. The likelihood of there being some sort of new signal at Nebraska or new markings to cross Nebraska does strike me as unlikely. But ultimately, we do want to look for ways for people to get safely onto Broad Branch once Broad Branch is better able to accommodate bicycle traffic and onto Rock Creek Park. So my brilliant suggestion was to investigate a left turn on Chevy Chase Parkway and then a right on Jocelyn, which is not marked on this map, to then put cyclists on Nevada to then make their way to Broad Branch that way. I am open to other suggestions, but my intent was to just look at that, to express general support for the bikeways concept, but take no other position on any of the other aspects in 3E and 3G, 3.4G. 3E in particular had a extensive set of recommendations for alterations. I recommend we take no position on that. So I have a resolution to do all the things that I just said.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second
Bob has seconded it. Is there a discussion, Bob?
How busy is Chevy Chase Parkway? I'm not that
Chevy
familiar.
Chase Parkway is not particularly busy at all. Those
Okay.
streets, Military is busy.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
the key, but you would be turning, Jocelyn is 1 block south of Military, so it's pretty quiet through there. It's a pretty short left turn. There's a stop sign at that intersection in all 4 directions as well.
I see.
Okay. Does anyone else?
Well, that makes a lot of sense, yeah.
Mary
Have you
Beth?
actually biked this?
It's shallow.
I mean, I've walked it extensively. It is an odd thing also that this term, this is somewhat of a separate issue, but it also is an odd thing that it terminates at Jennifer at Nebraska, where
I mean, that's the end
to
of
get,
this?
that's
The
the
whole
end of this
thing?
plan, and then to get up to where I believe the bike route, you basically have to then go up Nebraska. It just sort of dumps you out in kind of an odd
You
place.
go back up to Connecticut? What do you do?
I guess you go Nevada to Linian. I don't know. Linian.
Have they not finished the plan?
No, well, see, if you look at here on this, it says project limit. There's a
So-
line. So
right,
you're
so
just supposed to
it's-
stop
it's
right
like
here.
Maybe in the future it would be.
Maybe in the future. I think
Who knows?
the goal is
different
to
project.
Different project.
the goal is to connect, as it's stated, the goal is to connect cyclists to Rock Creek Park. It kind of doesn't really do that.
May I make a suggestion to this resolution? Sure. In your third whereas, where you say whereas ANC 3F did not receive notice of intent despite being implications for the ANC 3F area, ANCs aren't noticed unless you're within 200 feet. That's the law.
Which we are.
Unless what?
It's well within.
Unless what?
It's
We're
well
within
within 200 feet.
We're in like
Nebraska.
1
It's
foot.
probably
We're
less
across
than
the street.
40 feet.
I know. What I'm trying, what I'd like to change that to say is where ANC 3F is within 200 feet
Oh,
and did not, and was not noticed.
Okay.
Although there are impacts to the ANC 3F boundaries, which I think is impact is, I think is a better word than implications.
There
Yeah.
are
That's good.
impacts. Sure, great, fabulous.
Go with that, Manoli.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
He's saying
Be it
Anything
also
else?
resolved that ANC 3F requests that DDOT reconsider the proposed termination at the intersection, blah, 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 due to concerns that it leaves cyclists with no convenient, safe, or legal way of reaching Broad Branch Road. I would put a period there, because I think that's true. And then say, be it further resolved that ANC 3F asks DDOT to consider a route north on Chevy Chase Parkway, blah, blah, blah. Because I think it's strong saying that you're no safe way of leaving Broad Branch. I mean, that you're getting dumped, whatever. That one possible,
Okay.
whatever.
Cool.
Yeah.
Does anyone else have comments?
Can you
David?
read back those two changes?
Oh. Thanks a lot, David. I think what I said is
Oh, no,
whereas
I'm
ANC
here, I think.
3F
Yeah.
is within 200 feet and did not receive,
Manoli, you have these changes too, right?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, he can write it.
We can, and we have the tape.
If that, those are friendly
Okay.
amendments.
Yeah, perfect.
Okay. Any other comments to this resolution?
The only other question would be whether anybody else wants to speak to it. I'm happy to, but if there's anybody else who has a burning
Anyone
issue,
else?
a burning desire to be listed as.
Okay. So, let's vote on this. All in favor of this, say aye.
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 700. Passes unanimously. All right, next up is discussion of the.
It's unanimous, yeah. I said unanimous.
Yeah. Next up is discussion of red light camera in Nebraska and Fessenden. Quickly,
Is
there's
that
a lot of.
Marlene's issue? Is
That's
she here?
my issue. I don't know. So there's a lot of chatter on listservs about this red light camera in Nebraska and Fessenden. I said to the listserv at our next meeting I would send a letter to MPD and DDOT and whoever else agency needs to be reached out to. And basically I was curious at the initial stage to find out some statistics and information about the camera, possibly the history of the camera, how many tickets it's given out, how many get thrown out, things like that. So what I'm going to do is propose a resolution to send a letter to DDOT, MPD, and other agencies to come up with a list of questions regarding data on this camera and have them report back to us. And then another meeting, we'll go from there. So is there a second for my resolution to send a letter?
Second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion on what I said?
Why?
Why? Because a lot of citizens are concerned about the camera, and I
Because
think
they're getting tickets?
Yes.
Which is a good thing.
Well, I don't know about that, but I guess people are curious
I've
about.
gotten one of those tickets.
I think what I'm saying is if people are breaking the law and not following,
No, this
Exactly what
isn't.
people do.
This is not. This is not a question about who's breaking the law. The question here is really, I'm curious to know how many tickets does this thing give out? How many do you throw out? That's all. Purely exploratory.
What are people getting a ticket for?
You know what's weird about it? You get the ticket and you have no idea why you got the ticket because there's nothing that says you cannot right turn on red.
You can turn right.
You can turn right on red
After a
there.
full stop.
After a full
After
stop.
a full
behind the
stop.
line.
But what they're doing, if you roll over the line, 6 inches,
Technically, the
then-
law is broken then.
then the law's
even if you
broken.
stop, then they're going to.
I agree. I agree. I'm with you.
So
I'm with you,
people-
but that's not the issue I'm raising right
people
now.
need to be-
I'm just curious to send a letter and find out some stats about the camera, maybe some history.
But isn't the stat finding out how?
How many
what-
people break the law, which would be stopping cross the line, not completely.
Okay.
That's
So-
the law.
so
It's
it's-
very simple law. I mean, people don't follow it. I get that. I appreciate that. I've spoken to about 75 people who have gotten tickets. I have not found a single person that has actually followed the law to a T yet. And I would help them get rid of that ticket if they did. But until someone comes to me and says, I got a ticket and I followed the law 100%, so I shouldn't have gotten one, I'm not discussing whether or not it should be, something should be modified or the law should be more.
Is this in yours?
It is, I think.
But I
No, it's in
No,
David's.
it's in
David's.
But it doesn't, I mean, I'm just curious to get some statistics, and then we can come back and visit this and invite MPD and stuff.
At one time, I know Marlene Berlin contacted me about this very recently, as a matter of fact, and I don't have my computer with me, but there was a reason we put this camera
I
in.
believe it's for school kids.
No, it wasn't just part of school.
That's
It
what
was
I've been
because
told.
of speed, though there was a whole bunch, there was a series of reasons, and I sent it to from minutes from years
And
ago.
that's what I'd like to find out more
Yeah, I
about
think-
why it came and whatever. So
It came from our minutes years
that's
ago.
that's
And
where I'm
part of
at.
it was because somebody got run over by a speeding car, because there was nothing between Fessenden and Nebraska that really slowed cars down. They gained speed.
Okay, but that's
Can
not,
I just suggest, friendly amendment,
Yes.
that we also ask DDOT what they're doing to educate people on how this works?
Sure.
Because I think at most, intersections, the light doesn't get triggered, or the, ticket or whatever isn't triggered by just rolling over the line. So I think if we're going to keep the light set up the way it is, then we need to figure out a way to educate people.
Sure.
Well, the question that you're asking, and maybe this is a question for the letter, is there a different calibration for this intersection than at other locations?
That's
Right,
fine.
and if
I-
so.
Well, what is the
How
calibration?
are you going to educate people?
I suspect the answer is not,
But no, that's fine. I
but
think
that's for them to answer. I would ask another question.
And I
which
think-
is, what is the, if possible, to find out the statistics of tickets awarded, tickets issued to drivers by ward.
Yeah, no. So what I'm planning to do is I'll make a list of questions and I'll circulate it amongst ourselves, and you can add and comment on it, and then I'll send a letter.
Well, I have
Something
that-
simple as that.
I have no
Why,
problem
why
with
is
that.
that relevant?
I'm just curious. Well, this is
Yeah,
all out of
I'm
curiosity.
actually curious about it too.
You know,
I
I
wonder if
think
it's
a lo-
only Ward 3 drivers.
There's
or
some
something.
agitation to take action on this intersection, and I'm
If what
curious as to
Marlene
where it's
Berlin sent me is accurate, evidently Muriel Bowser is the one pressing DDOT to remove this camera because her residents are getting tickets.
Okay, well, we'll ask these questions and find out. I think that's interesting.
Cutting across?
But anyway, so
We can do a copy
that's.
on
Is
the
there any
Marlene
other
Berlin
comments on
email.
my resolution?
Mhm.
Okay, can we vote on sending a letter and building a list of questions over email?
Is it seconded?
Yes.
I think, yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, great. Next
And
issue.
I'm going to circulate the letter that I'm sending, the DDOT letter to, for comment, once I write it,
Okay, sure. All right, miscellaneous. Bob, financial update.
the one on this.
We
flag.
did get our
Flag.
full quarterly allocation of $3,896.32. Our current available funds are $595.79. David, do you want me to repeat that?
Can you just repeat the or yeah, go ahead and repeat both.
The allocation is 3896.32. The total available is 137,595.79.
Okay, great.
So we're rich. We did get a copy of the auditor's fiscal year 2012 report for all the ANCs, if anyone wants to see it. We look very good and have a lot of money.
Thank you, Bob. Next up, approval of minutes from August 2013 meeting. Does anyone, well, I'll make a motion to approve those minutes. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any comments on the minutes? Seeing none, all in favor of the August 2013 minutes, raise your hand and say aye.
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 All opposed? Abstaining?
Well, I wasn't here, so.
You can still vote for them.
Well.
Okay, 2
This is
abstaining.
stereo.
They pass. All right, next, discussion of hiring an intern to assist the commission. So I would like to propose that we find an intern somewhere, maybe UDC, AU, something like that, someone interested in politics, that wants to work for our wonderful commission, to help us with the video equipment, maybe taking notes, helping send emails, organizing stuff. I was thinking about it. I think we could get someone for free. At the same time, I think it would be nice to give them some kind of stipend. Maybe we'll find like a semester-long person and give them like $350. You know, maybe we'll get someone a little bit better caliber who wants a couple $100 as a thank you. So I would propose that I go place an ad somewhere. Maybe I'll reach out to UDC or AU's Career Services or Craigslist or something, and advertise an internship for our commission to help with the video camera and other miscellaneous things for this semester, and we'll give them a stipend of $350 at the end of their internship, and we'll write them hopefully a recommendation, things like that. So is there a second for that?
Second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion?
Yes.
Go for it.
Question.
Yeah.
It's more of a question.
Yes.
Because the job, we've gotten in trouble with the district auditor before on hiring of people.
Yep.
And the reason has been cited that if you hire somebody, we have to pay DC taxes, health insurance, unemployment compensation, everything else. And that's dependent on how a job description is written. If it's a contract person, you can hire them for X number of hours, and then you don't pay all of that. If you're hiring them as an employee, you have to pay all of that, and we've gotten
We would not be
burned.
hiring them as an employee.
So I think a lot depends on how something is written.
There is almost no chance that hiring someone for an ongoing basis like that would be considered not hiring. So we would be subject to all of those associated taxes.
Okay, so then, in light of that, I would propose to modify my resolution so we do not give them a stipend, so they're an unpaid volunteer. Is there a second for my, or I'll just modify it, I guess, is there a second of that?
I second that.
Thank you. So is there any further discussion, just finding an unpaid volunteer to assist us?
UDC sends out something to us, at least I get it, I don't know if all the commissioners do, saying they have students that they're trying to place in internships.
So they can, I will reach out to them and they can interview.
I get it from,
for
I get it from the law school
But
every
anyway,
day.
but anyway,
Yeah,
that's not, that's after this.
I totally support, I mean, we need help, you all, we really need help. For the vision committee, for the Soapstone committee, we've already reached out to the Johns Hopkins program to try to get a volunteer intern. We had one person respond, and she sent me a resume, and I don't understand why she applied, except that English is not her native language, and she wouldn't return my call, and I think she was, you know, kind of iffy about her English skills.
She might be on unemployment, and you have to apply for X number of positions to keep
So I'm
getting
just,
it.
I'm just saying, if we're not going to pay anybody,
No, I mean,
Yeah.
let's see what happens.
Let's see what
I mean,
happens.
I'll go reach out to
Yeah.
UDC and
Okay.
whoever, and let's see what
You
we
know,
get. There
one
may be
person-
someone. So I guess, does anyone have discussion about the resolution to find an unpaid intern? Not whether your feelings on interns or whatever, just
No,
the
I like
resolution.
interns, I don't mind them.
Okay, let's bring this for a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Unanimously passes. Last but not least for the evening, Mary Beth would like to read off a list of membership for this committee. the
Yes.
Vision
Pursuant
Committee.
to the bylaws, I am required to put forward the names of the proposed membership.
Of what?
Of the Vision Committee.
Oh, okay.
These are people who have attended almost every meeting. They're actively, each of them, I'm happy to say, is actively engaged in the work of the committee. So these are not just names. These are people who are rolling up their sleeves and really getting involved. So the names that I put forward for the Vision Committee membership are the following: Marlene Berlin, Deepa Mehta, Charles Schilke, Francis Wu, Marjorie Scher, David Bardeen, Maria Creighton, Larry Roush, Bill Sittig, Judy Sullivan, Jane Solomon, Pat Davies, Ken Terzian, Sally Gresham, Adam Tope, ex officio pursuant to the bylaws as chairman of the committee, and myself, Mary Beth Ray.
Mary Beth, if possible, I'd like to be added.
Okay.
I mean, I was at the last meeting, but that was the only one I knew about at that point.
Okay. I mean,
Okay.
we can always amend
I mean, I
it.
think-
We can always amend it in the future when, whatever, if you hit the threshold of going to
I don't
two
know.
or whatever
I don't
it
know
is.
what the threshold is.
But that's fine, we can always add to it in the future. But I guess I guess we should probably formally approve this. So I'll make a resolution to approve that list.
Except
of
I would like to be added now because I would like to work on that small area plan. I'm the one with the contacts.
I don't think not being on the list is.
Well, I think it's important to be on the list.
Whatever you want, Mary Beth.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay, so adding Karen,
It's my
resolution to approve
neighborhood.
this list. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Great, 700. I'd like to make a motion to adjourn for the evening.
Before you do, one question, because I wasn't here when you approved the agenda. I understand that there might have been a meeting with UDC on what we filed, the protest against their,
Yeah, sorry, I haven't written up notes.
and I
That's
have to
fine.
be honest, I didn't know about it. I mean, I would have liked to have maybe possibly attended. I think a lot of us didn't know that this mediation meeting was even taking place.
It was not a mediation.
Oh, well, I don't know what it
It
was.
was just an
It
informal
wasn't
meeting to
entirely
talk
clear
about
what
it.
it was. They asked for it, Adam asked, I was interested in attending, and then Adam was unable to attend at the end. Sorry, I apologize, I have not written up notes. I can give you if you want, on
A
in
quick,
the
yeah,
meeting.
quick gist, yeah.
They were facing filing their responses the following day. They effectively were. There was a semi. But there wasn't a request to see whether or not we would withdraw. Obviously, I was not empowered to do that, and I was not going to do it at that time, regardless. And then we just talked more generally about some of the considerations or some of their responses without getting into specifics, because they didn't want to hand them over without them officially filing. And then we just talked more about ways that we can keep lines of communication open, and generally about some of the measures that we had raised. There was no. It was effectively, I mean, I saw it as a way of continuing to sort of build ties so that we, hopefully don't have to resort to something like that in the future, that they are complying and that we have a channel to have that discussion be as fruitful as possible. It was a very cordial discussion, but there was no mediation.
Are we getting a copy of their filing?
We should get a copy of
should
the
get a
filing. It
copy.
should, when it's duly filed, it will go to the parties to the complaint.
So we and
But
Van Ness
they were
neighbors.
supposed to file, it was, I guess, about 2 weeks ago. So,
check.
yeah,
I'll
we'll have
check.
to check to see what.
I guess part of the reason I'm asking is that,
It was very cordial. It was not at all confrontational, and it need not be confrontational.
oh, I'm not saying it should be. I wasn't sure what it was. I had just heard through the grapevine that there was going to be something, and I didn't know what they were talking about when they asked me.
Who was they? What was the grapevine and who was they?
The grapevine was somebody that lives in my building that works for UDC.
Okay. Anyhow, there was no mediation occurring.
And they said they were meeting with ANC 3F, and they said they would see me the next day, and I was like, what are you talking about?
Okay.
You know.
We have, I discuss lots of things with UDC a lot.
No, I know,
I'll try
but-
to include you in the future.
Well, you know,
Every discussion.
I'm not saying every discussion. I think it's important for the ANC, and I'm talking about Commissioners Gresham, Ray, everybody, to know what's going on. When the ANC files something, we should all be in the loop on
But there's been no movement on it.
what's taking place,
I mean,
or the fact
if
that there
there's-
is a meeting, or whatever.
If there's movement, I mean, we don't have a problem. Nothing's happened yet.
The
But
other thing,
but anyway.
the other thing I wanted to raise on
That's maybe a
UDC.
separate discussion about UDC. Go ahead.
No, the other thing I was going to say was because of the article in the Northwest Current on the consulate, which is in Commissioner Summersgill's district, that article wasn't totally accurate. And this is something that Commissioner Summersgill needs to know because the consulate no longer has a tenant association, which makes a difference. But for each 8 rooms that they have to provide one resident advisor.
Right, which is in the
Which was
order.
different than in the order. No, that's in our order. It was wrong in the Northwest Current article.
The Northwest
I'm
Current
just
is
saying.
not always correct.
No, I'm just saying that so Bob can follow through, because there have been already complaints. People are from the consulate residents.
Okay. So motion to adjourn the meeting, is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, yay, good night.